What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 11 Knots Chapter 201 Iwagaker's Random Entry, 2 in 1. The style of Mihara Mountain Castle is completely different from that of Shenyang City. It is quaint and simple, without too fancy decoration. Haruki sat on the hall. Hitaki Tsukumo, Hyuga Hiyashi, Uchiha Fugaku and others were sitting on both sides. Except for Namikaze Minato. After Haruki finished his speech last night, he led an army of 160,000, divided into 7 troops to take down the 7 gates of the Yue mountain range, and continued forward without stopping. His destination is the metropolis of Thunder Country. In Haruki's view, it would be a waste to let Minato be a general. After all, he couldn't use his personal strength. But the current Konoha has enough high-end combat power, and it doesn't matter if Minato is missing. And the army of Fire Nation would not be able to do without him. Hitaki Tsukumo is experienced, but only limited to ninja wars. He cannot command an army of 160,000. Only Minato, who has been in the military camp for 7 years, can serve. Haruki didn't believe in the other generals of Fireland either. Besides, most of them were slashed by him with a single sword. Thinking about it, Minato is the most suitable. At this time, his title of Golden Glitter completely resounded through the ninja world. Although it was completely different from the original one, the effect was achieved. Haruki doesn't have to worry about burying his apprentice. Master Haruki. Anbu's ninja appeared in the hall. He handed over the scroll and disappeared again, no more than 2 seconds before and after. Haruki had long been accustomed to Anbu's high efficiency, and he opened the scroll. A group of them gathered here early in the morning just to wait for information. He quickly scanned it and said, 4th Raikage and the army of 20,000 ninjas are coming towards Mihariyama Castle. Everyone in the hall was a little surprised. Not surprised by Raikage's offense, but surprised by the number of 20,000. Cloud Shinobi Village lost 2,000 vanguards, and even made up another 20,000 ninjas, which is almost an outburst. Once it fails, I am afraid that it will be difficult to regain its vitality within 10 years or even decades. Haruki, it seems that Raikage's resentment towards you has reached the level of immortality. Hitaki Tsukumo looked at the peaceful Haruki with emotion. To be honest, the development of this war to this point has completely exceeded my expectations. He remembered the last Ninja World War. A group of them was born to death, but it was just a tragic victory. It is in sharp contrast to the current one who is not dead. He felt inexplicably as if he was lying down and winning. After entering the Kingdom of Thunder, he seemed to have done nothing and occupied 1/3 of the land. Haruki smiled when he heard the words, and the actions of Cloud Shinobi Village were in his expectation. He also wrote a letter specifically to Raizo Matsuda of the Land of Thunder. Use the lives of Miyagi Hiroshi and others as coercion. Want to rescue them in a short time, Matsuda Reizu will inevitably give this task to 4th Raikage. But it also meets Haruki's purpose. The daily food consumption of the 160,000 army and 10,000 ninjas is an astronomical figure. He doesn't know how to do a sullen thing like scouting on the spot. So Haruki did not want Cloud Shinobi Village to fight a protracted battle in the Land of Thunder. Cloud Shinobi has the home court advantage. Konoha came from afar, and the speed of material transportation was much slower than Cloud Shinobi Village. The best way is to make Cloud Shinobi Village have to fight with them somewhere. Haruki had an idea after seeing the Mitake Mountains. I intend to use it as a barrier to attract Cloud Shinobi Village to attack. As for the reason, Miyagi Hiroshi and others are the reason. Haruki is not like these ninjas to follow the rules, so naturally you have to use what you can use. The next battle is far more cruel than before. Haruki looked at the people in front of him, and his tone became serious. Raikage will definitely attack Mihariyama Castle at all costs. You understand the power of ninjas. Ordinary defense methods are useless, so we have to take advantage of these 2 days. Time to rearrange the defense. Hitaki nodded. As the commander next to Haruki, the task of deploying defense is naturally entrusted to him. At the end of the short meeting, Haruki rubbed his temples. What he worries about now is not Cloud Shinobi Village, but how to deal with Thunder Country. There is a saying, it is easy to fight the country and it is difficult to keep the country. They nominally occupy 1/3 of the country, but in fact they are not completely masters. Even the major cities are simply and rudely controlled with ninjas. Not to mention the vast towns and villages. The original 3,000 defenders of Mihariyama Castle were not disbanded. Haruki temporarily detained them in the barracks. When he arrived, he saw many residents of the city surrounding the barracks. Since it is a city, it is naturally impossible for only 3,000 defenders to live here. Although it was originally built as a barrier and checkpoint, there has been no war for a long time, which has caused more and more civilians in the city. A large part of it is because of the defenders. In other words, Haruki detained them and directly offended the entire city. There are many such cases, but the war is so cruel. Haruki couldn't be so soft-hearted. He enters the barracks. All eyes are chaotic scenes. The 3,000 soldiers looked worried. After the defeat, they did not dare to imagine any good end for themselves. Either death or slave. but no matter what it is miserable. Haruki stood on the high platform and didn't say much nonsense. The first thing is to let them choose a few outstanding soldiers to serve as new generals. At first they couldn't believe what they heard, however, under the urging of Haruki, they dubiously selected 3 officers with considerable prestige and strength. Your mission has not changed. You are still guarding this mountain city. The only difference is that you are no longer the army of the Kingdom of Thunder, but the Kingdom of Fire. Haruki looked at the tranced people in front of him and said lightly, "Are there any objections?" Everyone shook their heads. They don't actually have a sense of belonging. One is that they did not join the army voluntarily, and the other is their poor treatment. You can save your life and don't care about the country of thunder or the country of fire. Haruki nodded upon seeing this. There are many hidden dangers in this approach. But the 3,000 defenders couldn't make any waves in the face of absolute strength. Besides, Haruki will not treat them badly. Now explain the treatment of Zanja army to them one by one. After speaking, the barracks were silent. Is this really what we can have? When they looked at Haruki, they suddenly felt an unreal feeling. If they are treated like this, they are willing to stay in the country of fire forever. Haruki no longer explained. No amount of speech is as effective as action. He immediately let them leave the barracks. After a while, there were bursts of exclamation. Haruki glanced at the touching scene of the family meeting, was silent, and came to the city wall. Standing on a high place, looking out, there are mountain walls on the left and right sides, and a passage with a width of more than 10 meters is in the middle. He mimicked the scene of a genin attacking the city. The early stage must be a large-scale ninjutsu attack. If Raikage is smarter, he might use sneak attacks before attacking. But the possibility is small. One is Raikage's character, and the other is their strength far exceeds Konoha. In terms of the number of people alone, it has doubled. Changing anyone's position on Raikage is bound to be overwhelming. Besides, he is very anxious. In an urgent situation, he will not waste time doing something dark. Master Haruki. Hyuga Hiyashi noticed Haruki looking into the distance for a long time, and couldn't help but step forward to say hello. Haruki turned to see a pair of big Byakugan. In the war, Byakugan's actions are undoubtedly more useful than Sharingan. Hiyashi, can your Byakugan see the end of the mountain road? Let me try. Hyuga Hiyashi raised his head, Byakugan activated, and the meridians on both sides burst. Can. He gave a definite answer and asked, do you want us Hyuga to do anything? The Department of Ninja and Technology Research has a batch of special weapons specially made for you. Haruki took out a sniper rifle from the scroll of summoning. It operates the same as Skyfire, but has a longer range, a faster rate of fire, and is relatively less powerful. You mean let us shoot at a long distance? Hyuga Hiyashi set up a sniper rifle, and in Byakugan's sight, he clearly saw the entrance to the mountain a kilometer away. Look to search. Stay on top of a small yellow flower. He squeezed the trigger, and a bullet whizzed out, hitting precisely. The explosion occurred 2/3 smaller than the Skyfire range. Hyuga Hiyashi touched the gun body, he thought further. If every member of the Hyuga family is equipped with such a gun, their strength will be greatly improved. He has gentle fist in close quarters and guns in long range. The future of the Hyuga family is very bright, how about it? Seeing him with a thoughtful look, Haruki asked, very good. Hyuga Hiyashi recovered and said seriously, I don't know how many such guns does Haruki-sama have. Not a lot, 100. Enough. Hyuga Hiyashi smiled immediately. Within 7 years, the population of their Hyuga clan doubled. But as a minor, there are not too many ninjas participating in the war. 100 guns are more than enough, Haruki smiled. Since it is tailor-made for their Hyuga clan, it is natural to consider the issue of quantity. Although other ninjas can reach this level, the training cost is too high, and the effect is far inferior to Byakugan. After all, a sniper rifle with no dead ends at 360 degrees, just ask if you are afraid? In addition, you can see through. Too omnipotent. You Hyuga clan must hurry up and increase the population. Haruki sighed suddenly. The corners of Hyuga Hiyashi's mouth twitched slightly. This thing is not for me to decide. I also want the population of Hyuga's family to increase, but after all, I can't rush. I'll try. Hyuga Hiyashi replied. By the way, I remember Hyuga Hizashi was married 6 months ago. As an older brother, why are you still a step slower? When it comes to this topic, Haruki thinks of Hyuga Hizashi. In the original work, his son Hyuga Neji is indeed bigger than Hyuga Hinata. I and Hyuga Kaoru will probably get married after this war is over. Hyuga Hiyashi scratched his head and said in a deep voice. He had already planned to get married, but when Haruki asked, he went along. I hope Haruki-sama will be there at that time. Haruki was speechless. What a standard flag. Master Haruki, don't you want to? Hyuga Hiyashi was a little nervous when he saw him silent. I will be there. Haruki did not refuse his request. As for flag, he can completely ignore it with his strength. An inspiration flashed in his heart and said, Minato and Kushina should get married too. Huh? Is it going to be held together? Hyuga Hiyashi asked subconsciously. I can't help but want to spit in my heart. This Haruki-sama doesn't want to be lazy, just make 2 games and play one, right? That's not it. Haruki shook his head. As the 4 of them, there was no need to huddle together for the wedding. Have you heard of baby kiss? Baby kiss? Hyuga Hiyashi was startled slightly. Do you mean to make a marriage contract for our 2 future children? If it is a man and a woman, it is a marriage contract. 2 boys are brothers, and 2 girls are sisters. Haruki explained briefly. How do you say the love between Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Hinata in the original work? In the early stage, Naruto didn't care or notice at all. His eyes were either on Sasuke or Haruno Sakura, ignoring Hinata. By doing this, Haruki can be regarded as helping Hinata. Of course we don't arrange the wedding. If they don't want to, they can cancel it at any time. He added, Hiyashi, what do you think? Everything obeys Haruki-sama's instructions. A smile appeared on Hyuga Hiyashi's face. To be honest, he really hopes that his future children can marry Minato's children. Minato is Haruki's apprentice and gained a huge reputation in this war. The next Hokage is almost a certainty. And Kushina is not bad, the orphan of the Uzumaki clan, Haruki's apprentice, and Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. The children of 2 people must be born with a golden key. It can't be an ordinary ninja. After the war is over, you can go to Minato and talk about it. Haruki thought of Kushina again. She might not agree with something like this. You don't have to publicize it, just know it yourself. Okay. Hyuga Hiyashi nodded. After Haruki talked to him for a few words, he found Hitaki Tsukumo to learn about the situation of the defense. In general, there are no omissions. The biggest attack method of Cloud Shinobi Village is 8 tails. In addition, Haruki worries that they will take out the theater version of the chakra cannon, which has the power to destroy the moon. But he is not sure whether this exists. If there is, he can only do it. The next day, Haruki received an unexpected news. 5,000 Iwagakure ninjas, led by 3rd-generation Iwaka Jonoki, joined the team of Cloud Shinobi Village. As a result, the already mighty army surged to 25,000. Not to mention that there are such powerful players as Onoki. In his prime of life, Onoki is definitely no less a ninja than 4th Raikage. Known as one of the strongest in the Jonin world. Haruki had thought that Iwagakure would take advantage of the fire, but did not expect to cooperate with Cloud Shinobi Village. But he didn't panic at all. The number of people doesn't make any sense to him. His only concern is that after he uses wood style, he will turn from dark to light, and he will be known by Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu and will definitely be targeted. Sage Body and wood style are not invincible. Although Haruki was confident, the other ninjas were not so calm. Even Hitaki Tsukumo also experienced emotional fluctuations. Haruki, do we need Konoha to send someone to support? Don't you believe in wood style? Haruki asked back. But Hitaki was silent for a while. He naturally knew the legend of wood style, but that was 25,000 ninjas. Can it really be beaten by wood style alone? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 202 8 Tails Siege, 2 in 1. Perhaps it was Haruki's self-confidence that allowed Hitaki to temporarily let go of his worries and devote himself to the work of establishing the line of defense. The sun goes down and rises again. Master Haruki, they're coming over soon. They're no more than 5 kilometers away from here. When Anbu, who was inquiring about the news, returned, he reported. I see. Haruki waved his hand, and when Ninja stepped back, he raised his head, perceiving the spread. A huge amount of information flooded into his brain through chakra. His strength makes his perception far beyond the average ninja. A huge army clearly emerged in the distance. The first ones are 4th Raikage and 3rd Tsuchikage Onogi. I has met before, but Onogi is the first time. However, Onoki's appearance is so obvious that he can almost be recognized at a glance. As for the other ninjas, Haruki is not particularly familiar. Although he knew it, it was the information in the intelligence after all, and he had not seen it with his own eyes. Haruki probably scanned it, one-on-one with the image in his mind. The speed of the ninja is very fast, but near the mountain city, maybe because of a pitfall, I slowed down. When it reached the mountain pass, it stopped completely. More than a dozen Anbu ninjas emerged from the army and began to investigate the mountain roads. Haruki was not surprised. Although the number of people occupies an absolute advantage, I and Onoki are not really reckless people, and there is no less work to do. But they are doomed to get no results, because Haruki did not set traps. Here is a psychological tactic. He predicted the behavior of the 2 people and prepared a big gift. When they relax, the real attack will come. Hiyashi, prepare. Haruki didn't turn his head, and spoke softly. Hyuga Hiyashi did not answer. He and the rest of the Hyuga tribe, a total of 64 people, hid behind the wall. After hearing Haruki's command, he narrowed his eyes, and the scene in the distance was clearly visible. Holding the sniper rifle in both hands, looking for his target. According to Haruki's instructions, they will try to avoid Jonin and choose the more important Chunin. Although the speed of the blocking gun is fast, Jonin's strength, especially strong people like Raikage Tsuchikage, can fully react. Moment. In Haruki's perception, he saw the Anbu ninja who was exploring the trap returning to Raikage. He said decisively, Shoot! An alarm sounded in Haruki's ear. The huge sound tore the air, instantly spanning a distance of kilometers, entered from the center of the ninja's eyebrows, shattered the skull, passed through the back of the head, and exploded. Ai and Onoki's eyes widened. The blood passed through the cracked heads, with the smell of blood falling on their faces and bodies. They noticed the unusual sound of wind, but they still didn't have time. At the moment Ai was stunned, the experienced Oyemu made a seal on his hands, and a huge stone pillar rose up in the ground in front of him. But his face is still ugly. Once they met, they lost nearly 100 ninjas. And it's not ordinary chunin. Those who can be brought by them are all promising future pillars. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Oyemu turned his head to look at Ai, and asked, "You have fought a few times, why don't you know anything?" If it weren't for Cloud Shinobi Village's heavy losses, he would have doubted whether Ai was an undercover agent. Ai's expression sank. He was originally dissatisfied with Onoki's robbery. But Matsuda Lizu, the name of Thunder Country, insisted on letting them join. He gritted his teeth and said, "The enemy is currently saying that these are of no use." Onoki took a deep breath and said, "The opponent has this kind of long-range ninjutsu, and can't be easily exposed to them. I'll clear the way." The stone pillar in front of him immediately changed. Head, feet, hands, torso. In just a few seconds, a giant more than 10 meters tall was formed. Under the control of Oyemu, the giant was at the forefront, and his large body matched the stone walls on both sides, covering almost everyone. Earth-style Gang Lee-style technique. Haruki thought of this special Earth-style ninjutsu. In the original work, only ninjas of the Tsuchikage line have used it, and it is amazingly defensive, able to withstand Uchiha Madara's 8-foot Chonguyu. Hiyashi, you find the opportunity to shoot freely. Haruki has no dissatisfaction. 64 Hyuga members were unscathed and replaced hundreds of chunin died. Such a deal is really too cost-effective. Haruki gave no more orders. Waited a few seconds. As soon as the giant stepped out of a distance of 100 meters, its feet exploded. Haruki does not set traps in the mountain pass, but it does not mean that it is not set in the mountain road. One after the other, because of the deterrence of the blocking gun and the too much trust in the giant rock, they did not explore the second half of the road. Under the ground, the detonation charm is buried. It is densely packed, covering nearly 10 meters. Although not as terrifying as the sea formed by Conan's 600 billion detonating talisman, thousands of detonating talisman ignited instantly. The rock giant at the center of the explosion instantly disappeared with a thigh. The huge tremor caused the ground to shake, and the ninja in the distance fell straight back. But the ninja nearby was not so lucky. One part was buried in dust from the giant's legs, and the other part seemed to have been knocked into a meat grinder. Because of the close distance, Haruki no longer needs to perceive, and can see the tragedy in front of him with the naked eye. The rock giant fell to the right side of the mountain and knocked out a deep hole. This is already a blessing in misfortune. Under the raised dust, a bright thunder light could not be concealed. Although Ai rescued in time, many people still died as a result. Careful. Onoki heard the rapid wind. Hyuga Hiyashi and others pulled the trigger, and the chakra-wrapped light passed through the dust, covering them like a rain curtain. As soon as the rumbling sound sounded, a very huge rocky palm rose in front of them, holding them in the palm. The bullet fell on the palm of the hand, rolling up one explosion after another Uzumaki. Asshole! The grumpy Ai yelled, "Troy, get ready to attack." He can no longer stand such a push. If it was too far from Yamaguchi to release ninjutsu before, but now it's only half the distance. Troy has the magnet-style line of blood, but he knows that this offense has little to do with him. He commanded the ninja behind him. A few seconds later, a large amount of thunder light condensed in the sky above the mountain road, breaking the distance at an incredible speed, and the lightning and thunder seemed to tear the mountain city. No need for Haruki's orders. After the ninjas on the wall noticed their abnormal behavior, they began to seal the seal. Several attributes of chakra are mutually reinforcing. And wind style is the nemesis of lightning style. A transparent wind dragon stretched its huge body in the electric light, and after a slight pause, the long tail was wrapped around the thunder group. The blue light overflowed. After the wind dragon smashed the thunder and lightning, it did not stop its attack and hovered towards the ninja's army. Fourth Raikage Ai grunted and rushed in front of Troy and the others. He stepped hard, and the whole person rose in the air. A series of thunder light on his right arm exploded, long and dazzling, and then blasted out in an instant. The flying dragon screamed, and Ai's arm pierced through its huge head. He squeezed his fist fiercely and looked at the sunny tree on the wall. The hatred of the eyes seemed to pass through the space of several hundred meters. Haruki smiled. Hyuga Hiyashi and others behind him are not polite. It's rare to see someone outcropping. The sniper rifle made a clicking sound, and dozens of light spots were instantly thrown out. Ai punches again. Spots of light exploded densely. His body trembled slightly, and the dark blue thunder armor rose up. Ai only felt a little tingling in her right arm. Changing to another ninja, it is definitely impossible to take it so easily. With lightning-style chakra mode, he has extraordinary defenses, even making him ignore these sniper rifles. When Haruki saw this, he couldn't help but sigh for the power of ninjutsu. In the later stage of the original work, only looking at the 5 ninja villages, there is no doubt that Raikage is the strongest. Even Uchiha Sasuke, who obtained Mangekyo Sharingan, could not defeat him. And in the current Third Ninja World War, it is even more invincible. If it weren't for the appearance of Namikaze Minato in Konoha village, it would be a heavy price to win this battle. Shuo Mao. Haruki shouted softly. Hitaki Tsukumo nodded and quickly replaced him with a new batch of ninjas. There are not many of them, only 20, but each wears exoskeleton power suit. In 7 years, the exoskeleton power suit has extended many functions. With an order from Hitaki Tsukumo, their backs suddenly opened and a 20 centimeters high missile appeared. Within a second, one after another lifted off. Exhaust gas ejected arcs in the air. What? I saw these 20 missiles for the first time. His perception turned on and he noticed the fluctuation of chakra. But it doesn't seem to be particularly rich. I is cautious, and his right arm is once again covered with lightning-style chakra. Konoha's endless methods forced him to be cautious. The missile is fleeting. I blasted out with a punch. The mighty chakra, scattered around his center, is obviously a simple physical technique, but in Ai's hands, every move reveals unimaginable power. Only Haruki almost laughed after witnessing this scene. Directly hammer the explosive bomb. Thank you, Raikage. He lifted his fingers and plugged his ears. The deafening explosion resounded. The whole mountain is trembling. When the 20 missiles exploded, the detonating talisman mixed with gunpowder, causing a huge firework to rise in place. The flames filled. The sparks mixed with fragments sputtered in all directions like bullets. Fortunately, Onoki and his thousands of Earth-style ninjas jointly displayed the shield. Otherwise, this wave will have at least 3,000 or 4,000 fewer people. But this is the case. Hundreds of people died and even more were injured. The aftermath is reduced. Fourth Raikage in the center spit out blood. Because of the lightning-style armor, his surface defense is extremely strong, and he has gathered a large number of chakras in time, so there is no problem. But the internal organs were damaged in the explosion. I touched the bloodline at the corner of her mouth. The successive blows calmed him a lot. Although his personal strength is strong, there is a limit in the end. I returned to the army, took a deep breath and said, Tsuchikage, you cover us. No problem. Onoki and Rock Shinobi behind him hurriedly formed the seal, blocking the sniper rifle and various ninjutsu from the mountain castle. I takes a step forward and uses him as the lead to condense an even greater thunder and lightning. The originally clear sky was shrouded by thunder. From a distance, it seemed that there was a thunder city hidden among the clouds. Haruki narrowed his eyes subconsciously. Such lightning-style ninjutsu made him feel a little frightened. The massive amount of chakra, just in the condensation stage, is enough to make the surrounding air turbulent kick. Lei Guang reached unprecedented brightness, as if the sun was sinking suddenly. It's dazzling and dangerous. Haruki raised his hand, and chakra blew away the clouds above his head and the illusion that obscured his vision. 9 behemoths appeared in front of them, the fortress in the sky. From the ground, they are 9 huge planets. There was a steely feeling from the top, bottom, left, and right. Even at the critical moment of preparing for ninjutsu, the more than 20,000 ninjas underneath were lost for a moment. Towering into the clouds, buildings of tens of meters and hundreds of meters. They couldn't understand how they flew, and how Konoha created such a weapon. Tsuchikage, I couldn't help but remind him, I know. Onoki gritted his teeth, a series of stone pillars rose up in front of him, and after a while, a thick wall was built. Seeing this, I let go of his hands. The thundercloud above his head suddenly split. Countless blue pythons roared towards the mountain city. The whistling sound still couldn't conceal the mechanical sound of gears turning. The seemingly whole aerial fortress slowly separated to all sides, the gas emptied, exposing a huge barrel. Like a sleeping dragon, opened its eyes. In the next moment, a chakra sphere that was darkened and condensed to the ultimate burst rapidly. Tailed beast bomb. Killer Bee beside I couldn't help exclaiming, how is it possible? One after another, 9 truly. Compared to the huge thunder python, it looks extremely small. But the power is even better. A series of explosions resounded in the air. The strong wind and waves spread around them. Onoki's body shook, and the earth-style ninja behind him was pushed away by half a meter. Help me! He hurriedly shouted. 9-tailed beast bombs took only 5 to kill Thunder Anaconda, and 4 more. The blood-red chakra suddenly poured out. Killer Bee couldn't see clearly, he was replaced by 8 tails, but he still kept his human form. Half-tailed animalization. There was a fierce look in his eyes, and the blood-red tail beast coat gave people a great sense of oppression. Mouth opened. The same black ball spun rapidly and formed. All the ninjas around him were shocked. In their perception, the chakra of this small ball is dozens of times or hundreds of times higher than theirs. Before they were far away, they had no intuitive feelings about the 9-tailed beast bombs, but now they can finally understand why their lightning style for nearly 10,000 people will be killed. Fierce flames are overwhelming. The tailed beast bomb of 8 tails is like a beast burning with black fireworks, seeming to devour everything. Haruki squinted his eyes slightly. The strong fluctuation made him instinctively uncomfortable. When he looked at the center of the explosion again, the original mountain wall had disappeared. The vision suddenly widened. If it wasn't for the nearly 500 meters of land in front of Mihara Mountain Castle and the ninja army to sink down, forming a huge and incomparable deep pit, then perhaps a plain terrain had been created. Give it to me. After Killer Bee finished speaking, her body swelled rapidly. The blood-red tail beast's coat grew flesh-colored skin, and one tail after another emerged. After a while, Jinchuriki, who was completely beastly-tailed, was entrenched in front of the mountain city. In addition to Haruki, Konoha's many ninjas also appeared shaken. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 203 Sage Art Wood Style Shinsu Senju, 2 in 1. This is a huge beast that is big enough to fill the line of sight. 8 tails overwhelmed the sky, almost filling up the entire mountain road. Even though the pit created by the explosion of the tailed beast bomb occupies a certain height, it is still nearly 40 meters taller than Mihara Mountain Castle. As a barrier to Thunder Country, Mihara Mountain Castle had a much larger wall than other towns when it was built. Even so, it can't be compared with 8 tails at all. When Haruki raised his head, he could clearly see the explosive muscles on 8 tails. It was not difficult to imagine that there was a powerful force in it. Immediately after 8 tails appeared, it roared up to the sky. The huge sound wave made the whole mountain city sway. Konoha's ninja quickly used chakra to stabilize his body. Almost none of them here have seen the true face of the tail beast. The first time I saw it, my mind was hard to sway. However, they are ninjas anyhow, they have undergone various tasks, and their psychological qualities are not bad. After a while, he recovered. Without waiting for Haruki's order, the 9 air fortresses began to operate. Countless metal gears bite together, and the subtle voice expanded. One after another tailed beast bomb fell from the sky. Upon seeing this, 8 tails opened its mouth, and the unimaginable chakra gathered. Compared to the tailed beast bomb just now, this time is even more terrifying. It was so dense that it seemed as if the chakra mist was rising all around. In just an instant, the black round-tailed beast bomb shot like a cannonball. In the eyes of countless people, the tailed beast bomb of 8 tails collided with the tailed beast bomb of the air fort, and it was easily crushed into a scattered air current. 9 huge fireworks bloomed. Cloud Shinobi Village and Iwagakure joined the ninja army when they saw this and couldn't help but cheered. They can be said to have gained an advantage for the first time since the war. The front is too aggrieved. Only Onogi and I still have a calm expression. Onoki did not bring Iwagakure's 2 tail beasts this time. One is that he is worried that the tail beast will be damaged in the war, and the other is that he feels that Cloud Shinobi Village has 8 tails, and their strength is enough to cope with Konoha. Is it still so composure to this day? Onoki glanced at Haruki, who didn't change his face, and couldn't understand his confidence at all. Reikage, are you sure that 9 tails Jinchuriki is indeed here? Certainly. I nodded. On that day, 1,000 mysterious armies led by Minato charged, and the chakra on them was definitely 9 tails. Moreover, knowing that they had brought 8 tails Killer Bee to Cloud Shinobi Village, it was impossible to let 9 tails Jinchuriki stay in Konoha. Well, when Jinchuriki comes out, you and I will hold it together. Seeing Ai's calm expression on Onogi, he expected nothing wrong. Moreover, his own thoughts are similar to Ai. Only the tail beast can deal with the tail beast. If 9 tails is really not there, then they have a better chance of winning. Even if he is, he and I will not be afraid of 9 tails at all. Even 9 tails is the strongest tail beast, Suntri. Hitaki Shumao also thought of 9 tails for the first time. He watched the fireworks exploding in the sky and 8 tails slowly walking towards the mountain city. With its huge size, slowness is relative, and in less than a minute, 8 tails will be able to reach them completely. The continuous roar made Hitaki's voice very weak. Fortunately, Haruki's hearing is good. Where's our 9 tails Jinchuriki? Hitaki saw him turning his head, and then asked. Due to the importance of the tail beast, most ninjas do not know who Jinchuriki is. People outside do not know, nor do they know. The peculiarities of Cloud Shinobi Village make the 2 Jinchuriki all known. Konoha has always pursued a very confidential policy. If it weren't for Uzumaki Naruto, the protagonist, it wouldn't be known. She's in Konoha. Haruki said with a smile. Konoha? Hitaki Sakumo's eyes widened. He pointed to 8 tails and asked, what about this big guy? I don't think the firepower of the Sky Fortress is enough to hurt it. This is naturally normal. The power of the 9 Sky Fortresses comes from 0 tail and electricity. It is the limit to achieve the current effect. Regarding the tail beast, such an aerial fortress is enough to threaten any country and Shinobu Village. What? Are you scared? Haruki joked. What are you kidding? Hitaki said without hesitation, he was not afraid, but worried. With his strength, it is more than enough to save his life. But what about other ninjas? Haruki suddenly thought of his suicide, and couldn't help asking. If you were to abandon us and escape independently, would you do it? How can it be? Hitaki Sakumo shook his head and said, if you don't left or right, you will die, and you will die with everyone. Ha ha ha, it hasn't reached this point yet. Haruki laughed twice, looked at Dofakamui's 8 tails, and said, I still have to do it myself. Your wood style? Hitaki Tsukumo finally remembered Haruki's wood style. To be honest, he habitually forgot about Haruki Association wood style. The main reason is that he hasn't done much before. Over time, he only remembered that he was a medical ninja. Then be careful. Hitaki took a deep breath, took out the short sword on his back, and said, I and others will stop Raikage and Tsuchikage for you. The two of them are not easy, but you have to be careful. Haruki said with a smile upon hearing the words. In his opinion, the threat from Eight Tails to him is not comparable to the threat from Raikage and Tsuchikage to Hitaki Shumo and others. Don't speak big words at this time. Hitaki heard his implication and couldn't help but spit out. In his opinion, the strength of Eight Tails may not be as good as the combination of Raikage and Tsuchikage, but its destructive power and resilience are amazing. If it can't be dealt with, it will deal a fatal blow to Konoha's ninja army. And it is too much trouble for such a magnificent giant to control it. Especially for Hitaki Shumo and other strong players with partial body art, it is even more difficult to deal with. Of course he didn't know wood styles restrained on the tail beast, otherwise, he wouldn't be so worried. I am always telling the truth. Haruki nodded his eyebrows and instantly entered sage mode. Hitaki Tsukumo was about to speak, when he saw this exaggerated scene suddenly, he froze in place. He has seen sage mode. From Jiraiya. But Jiraiya's sage mode depends on his two toads. And Haruki. Seems to be that second. Soon he had an illusion, as if sage mode was as simple as this. Let the attack on the air fortress stop first, and don't waste energy. Haruki said softly. Oh. Hitaki Tsukumo recovered and immediately gave the order. The ninja wearing an exoskeleton power suit nodded, the news spread through radio communication, and the attack stopped immediately. Onoki and Ai Wei were startled, not knowing the reason. They looked at the mountain city, only to find that Qing Shu stood on the wall, completely exposed to their vision. What does it mean? They didn't understand Haruki's weird behavior. Although he noticed the lines on his face, he didn't immediately think of sage mode. Most of the sage mode in the original work comes from the three holy sites. Except Konoha, there are basically no ninjas in sage mode in other ninja villages. The Senju Hashirama era is too far away. Onoki had the fortunate experience, but never fought Senju Hashirama. At the age of 13, he followed his master to Konoha and wanted to form an alliance. When he met Uchiha Madara, he was beaten violently, and the alliance was naturally impossible. As for 4th Raikage, I is even less impressed. Until they saw a terrifying scene. I saw Haruki slap his hands with both hands, and huge trees emerged one after another on the ground outside the city wall. In a short moment, the chakra, which was so strong that it was horribly strong, grew to be as tall and thick as 8 tails. Looking at the past from the perspective of two people. Crazy catharsis of the extremely fast-growing vines, completely enveloping the entire mountain city. It's like a city on a tree. Wood style. I have always seen the big wind and waves of Oyemu, and I can't help but stutter. He really never saw this scene, but he had heard of it. Senju Hashirama, the legend of the god of ninja world. Especially since he was born in that era, he has a more profound experience. In that moment, he regretted mingling with this war. How could it be wood style? Ai's eyes reflected the green forest, and he shouted in disbelief. He would rather see 9 tails Jinchuriki than wood style. The prestigious name of wood style does not require any words to explain it. Senju Hashirama used wood style to beat the world's invincible players. Raikage. Onoki looked up into Ai's eyes and said, his wood style is definitely not as good as Senju Hashirama. Ai Wei was stunned by his calm tone. I don't know how he came to such a conclusion. You know that I have Chen Dun. It stands to reason that Chen Dun is a blood succession elimination higher than the blood succession limit, but it is impossible to achieve the legendary Senju Hashirama record. Although Onoki said that he was anxious and comforted Ai, he actually said it well. He has played against Uchiha Madara himself and knows his strength very well. And Senju Hashirama, who is pressing down on Uchiha Madara, can't just rely on a mere blood limit. There must be something else. Ai came back to his senses. Although the wood style just now was horrible, it was still acceptable, and it was about the same as the tail beast, and it was far from desperate. He took a deep breath and nodded. Troy, you stay in place for now. Ai raised his hand, looked at the city turned into a forest in the distance, and said, wood style has a very wide range of attacks. Until you know Haruki's strength, you should not intervene. Tsuchikage and I will go to help Killer B. Onoki quickly formed the seal, and patted him and Ai lightly, and a strange chakra suddenly poured in. Earth-style super light and heavy rock technique. Ai couldn't help but move his hands and feet a few times. Light as a swallow, as expected of Tsuchikage. Ai Zong jumped, and his whole body immediately flew up, 1/3 faster than usual. He now has the confidence to be faster than Minato's flying thunder god technique. The first fast man in the ninja world is nothing but him. Onoki also flew to his side. 2 people stood in front of 8 tails, like 2 ants. Haruki didn't mean to wait for 2 people. Instead, he confessed to Hitaki and spread chakra to every Konoha shinobi. The next wood style he uses is quite dangerous. Without talking nonsense with Onoki and I, Haruki patted his hands again. Wood style, the world of flowers and trees is coming. The wailing of the earth. Countless noisy voices crazily emerged from the underground. Oyeki and I were like enemies immediately. In their vigilant gaze, the ground and the nearby mountains of hundreds of meters and kilometers were destroyed together. The huge trees and countless vines, accompanied by hoarse voices, seemed to swallow the entire sky. Ai's eyes were gradually dulling. He muttered to himself, and asked, "Tsuchikage, do we still have a chance?" No answer. Shinshu took a step forward and immediately held up a vine under his feet. He was like Kun, the king of the world, gradually rising until he was in line with Eight Tails' sight. And behind him, red flowers grew from the trunk one after another. Haruki raised his arms. Countless flowers spread their petals instantly, releasing unparalleled beauty and murderous intent. Onoki and I appeared in a trance. They were shocked by this unspeakable scene. "No, it's wrong." Oyemu struggled to wake up suddenly. "Poisonous. This flower is poisonous." Ai immediately shook her body and quickly blocked her nose and mouth with chakra. He looked down, and the entire 20,000 plus ninja coalition forces had all fallen into a coma, and only a dozen of them were barely hit by their own strength. "You mean?" Haruki laughed when he heard the words. He was not surprised that he was not totally fascinated. The ninja world has a variety of weird methods, and it's normal to just escape a catastrophe. "Raikage, what's so mean?" Ai was silent. He was just unacceptable for a while. "I don't understand, you have such strength, why didn't you solve Cloud Shinobi Village by wood style in the first place?" On the side, Mr. Ono couldn't help the doubts in his heart and asked, "What if you did this earlier? Would I be so stupid to join with Cloud Shinobi Village?" "Naturally, to catch you all at once," Haruki said with a smile. Without his previous series of operations, how could 4th Raikage Ai be sent out? As for Iwagakure, it was just an accident, but in the Third Ninja World War in the original, they were restless. It can only be said that it was an arrangement of fate to bump into his hands. Onoki twitched the corner of his mouth. "Now, there is no room for maneuver." He shouted, "Raikage, this is not the time to be in a daze. Put your hands together and then open." A transparent cube appeared between your palms. Dust escape boundary stripping technique. Onoki's strongest attack ninjutsu can turn any item in the enchantment into an atomic state. Although Ai's reaction was slower, his speed was ridiculously fast because of the blessing of Earth-style super light and heavy rock technique. Almost at the moment the cube enchantment rushed to Haruki, a bright thunder light flashed on his right arm, and he blasted out without hesitation. Behind them, Killer Bee and Eight Tails, their huge mouths opened, and massive amounts of chakra condensed into ultra-density tailed beast bomb. In less than a second, Haruki could be said to be facing the three most powerful attacking ninjutsu in the entire ninjutsu. "This is your last chance," Haruki whispered. His body is infinitely elevated. Originally it was 60 meters, but now it rises to high altitude in an instant, reaching kilometers in a flash. The trio of ninjutsu suddenly lost their target. Although they were surprised at Haruki's speed, they immediately turned around and wanted to continue chasing. Then, they all froze in place. If someone asks them what is the most shocking scene they have ever seen in their life, they will definitely say it is now. The three raised their heads and saw a Senju Guanyin. Going up and down, right and left, all can see the end, as if there is no boundary, and it extends infinitely. Sage Art Wood Style Shinsu Senju. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 204 Eight Tails and Cloud Shinobi Processing, 3rd and 4th. Sage Art Wood Style Shinsu Senju. In the original work, only Senju Hashirama can control the strongest wood style technique. Behind him, a statue of Guanyin with 1,000 arms is transformed. The size is comparable to 10 tails, one hand can hold 9 tails, and it has unimaginable offensive and defensive power. Senju Hashirama used this technique to fight against Uchiha Madara's prestigious Susanoo in the Battle of End Valley. As for other ninjas, they are not eligible for Senju Hashirama. Naturally, it was the first time that Oyeki, Killer Bee and I saw it. Of course they would rather have never seen it before. Magnificent, huge, and invincible. Even Onogi, who has extensive experience, still feels dreamy and at a loss in the face of such ninjutsu. Is this really ninjutsu that humans can perform? The dust in his hand was released in an instant, and the transparent cube enchantment rapidly expanded until ultimate. But compared to Senju Guanyin, which is more than a kilometer away, it is like an invisible fly. Not to mention the decomposition into atomic state, even the surface cannot be damaged. And the tailed beast bomb that followed, was squeezed exploded by one of the giant hands before it was touched. It's like a balloon. The stray gas gushes in all directions. Except for the gust of wind, there was no harm, it's simply gua sha. "I'm not playing anymore." Oyemu clenched his fists, he looked at Ai on the side, and in a state of extreme shock, the thunder light on his arm could not be maintained. "Raikage." His voice trembled, but he still said clearly, "Our only hope at the moment is Eight Tails. Let him entangle this Guanyin statue, and then we get close to Haruki and kill it at a very fast speed." Ai returned to his senses and nodded sharply, he has no other choice. What's the point even if you can escape? When is a Hokage where Cloud Shinobi Village does not exist? It's better to die here. Killer Bee. I took a deep breath, this time we are more ill-fortuned. Killer Bee raised his head and growled. His huge body, 8 tails stretched out in all directions, fierce and terrifying. But Guanyin still looks like a little cat in Senju. Killer Bee and 8 tails jumped up suddenly, so fast that there was a roar in the air. At the same time, I was shrouded in thunder and light intertwined armor, and the Haruki whose eyes were fixed on the Guanyin statue, turned into a stream of light and rushed towards him. Onoki glanced at the two people, Ji-in disappeared in place, and fled without looking back. Haruki couldn't help but smile. 8 tails and I who rushed up were caught and could no longer move. He jumped off the Guanyin statue, his perception spread, and a little surprise appeared on his face. Onoki disappeared. It runs very fast, but it doesn't matter. Tanokuni and Iwagakure are to be cleaned up anyway. It's just a matter of time. One more big wild tree and one less big wild tree have no impact on Haruki. Haruki raised his fingers, gradually pinched Killer Bee and I's arms. Blood permeated. The AB group, which had not yet been fully known, was killed in the Mitake mountain range. Haruki did not intend to be merciful because the hatred could not be resolved. Just because he killed third Hokage, he would never persuade Killer Bee and I to surrender. In that case, they can only be killed, although it is a pity, reality is not a comic. Compassion may eventually harm yourself and the people around you. After Killer Bee died, 8 tails Gyuki appeared in real life. Kill me. Gyuki's face was distorted with pain, but the killing intent of his eyes was not reduced by half. Killer Bee is true to Jinchuriki, but he is a rare friend to befriend him. Now that he is dead, Gyuki is naturally unlikely to have a half-hearted affection for Haruki. Haruki ignored its clamor. The role of the tail beast is still good. Not to mention killing Gyuki, after a while, it will be reborn again. Are you leaving me a bug? Escape with death? Impossible things? Haruki frowned. Gyuki yelled too loudly, and raised his finger. The sound stopped abruptly. It's uncomfortable to be hit by Senju Guanyin's punch. If it is not a tail beast, it will die. Haruki directed the statue of Guanyin to place 8 tails Gyuki on the ground. Soon he withdrew chakra. Like the wind blowing through the desert, Senju Guanyin's huge body gradually disappeared. The woody mass formed by chakra was forced to fall off. After a few seconds, it hit the ground and lifted up large swaths of dust. The shadow finally disappeared, and the Konoha shinobi of the mountain castle reappeared. When they witnessed everything, they felt that they had had an outrageous dream. But the dream will wake up, but the reality will not. Sun. Sunny tree. Hitaki Tsukumo swallowed. Although he knew the reputation of wood style, what he saw exceeded his understanding. Can blood succession boundary really reach this level? He strongly doubted whether there was a problem with the common sense knowledge in his mind. Could this be the limit of blood succession? In theory, Onoki, a higher level of dust escape, is like a child in front of wood style. Hitaki Tsukumo silently approached Haruki, glanced at the surroundings again, and couldn't help his mouth twitching. The mountains have become forests alive. He has only read this class of wily in books related to Senju Hashirama. Suntree. Hitaki Tsukumo shouted again in a low voice. The manner is respectful, as if afraid of awakening the gods. Behind him, Hyuga Hiyashi, Uchiha Fugaku and others approached carefully. Haruki turned his head. He glanced at the unconscious Cloud Shinobi village and Iwagakure ninja, and frowned slightly. There are too many, and for a while, I don't know how to deal with it. Shuo Mao, what should these people do? Hitaki Tsukumo smiled bitterly and shook his head. When did he fight such a wealthy battle? He didn't know what to do when he caught so many enemy village ninjas for the first time. According to the previous rules, it is natural to torture, imprison, and interrogate. But at this scale, building 10 more prisons is not enough. Can't kill all. Seeing that he did not answer, Haruki groaned. If we kill all, it means that the entire ninja of Cloud Shinobi village will never die with us, and there will be no possibility of peace. Our purpose is not to annihilate Cloud Shinobi village, but to destroy Cloud Shinobi village. Turn Cloud Shinobi village into Konoha village. Hitaki Tsukumo nodded, but his heart was heavy. He naturally agrees with Haruki's statement. However, with more than 20,000 Cloud Shinobi, it is more difficult for them to return to Konoha than to climb to the sky. Although the ninjas of Cloud Shinobi village are united, it is impossible for everyone to have the courage to die. Haruki also understands what Hitaki Tsukumo is worried about, but he is not such a murderous person in vain, so he kills him directly. He thought about it for a moment. In ancient times, the prisoner's fate was naturally miserable, but in modern times it is different. Haruki raised 3 fingers and said, "First, let Anbu investigate all the ninjas so that the Uchiha clan can cooperate and interrogate them with illusions. Those with a bad personality and blood on their hands are welcome. You can kill them directly. There is no need to keep the scum. Second, the ninjas who hold important positions in Cloud Shinobi village, especially the powerful Jonin, are loyal to Cloud Shinobi village and go to jail. Other ninjas have undergone ideological education and relearning. After passing the exam, they can work for Konoha. Become a Konoha shinobi. Third, the remaining ordinary ninjas are given the right to choose. If you are willing to stay, we will incorporate them into our army and disperse them among the teams, giving them the same treatment as Konoha Shinobi. If they don't want to stay, let them go home, as usual, but they are no longer Cloud Shinobi Village ninjas and must live according to the new policy. Of course I can guarantee that it will be better than Cloud Shinobi Village. After hearing this, Hitaki Tsukumo and others showed a surprised expression. When Haruki asked, all of them were thinking about how to deal with these troublesome prisoners. But thinking about it, there is no way. Under the premise of incomplete killing, they cannot guarantee that the remaining Cloud Shinobi will not rebel. The three methods that Haruki said are not the most perfect, but they are undoubtedly the most effective and highly feasible methods that sound. This matter is left to you. Without waiting for Hitaki Tsukumo and others to speak, Haruki reminded them, they are caught with pollen. If there is no external stimulus, they will basically not wake up on their own. You have enough time. Okay. Hitaki Tsukumo nodded. He heard the overtones Haruki didn't leave, and asked, what about you? I took Eight Tails back to Konoha. Haruki glanced at Eight Tails, who was unconscious in the distance, and said, the war in the Thunder Country will not end immediately, it is too troublesome to carry 8 tails. Rajibo Minato is in charge, but what about Cloud Shinobi Village? Don't we take advantage of the victory and take them down? Not urgent. Haruki shook his head and smiled. Cloud Shinobi Village is already a turtle in the urn, and there is no escape. Moreover, their main force is here. If you conquer them, Cloud Shinobi Village will naturally belong to Konoha. 2. Hitaki Shumo also knows Cloud Shinobi Village. 20,000 ninjas can be regarded as all young adults, and the rest are either kids or ordinary residents without chakra. There is no threat at all. Hitaki even thinks he can win Cloud Shinobi Village alone. What about these ninjas of Iwagakure? Do you follow the same method as you said? I'm afraid not. Iwagakure is still there, and their obsession with the village and family will be deeper in their hearts. Haruki touched his chin and said, well, I will take them back to Konoha and detain them temporarily. Then, I will discuss compensation with Onoki. After speaking, he stretched out his hand and chakra formed an air current to hold up Iwagakure's ninja. There were originally 5,000 people, but nearly 1,000 died in the battle. But the remaining 4,000 ninjas were enough for him to blackmail Onoki. Using Flying Thunder God technique. With the unimaginable passage of chakra, he appeared in the death forest outside Konoha. Haruki sighed, a very rare experience, he actually felt the lack of chakra. After getting Sage Body, it was the first time he used so many chakras. Not only the distance is long, but the transport is heavy and heavy. If I change to Namikaze Minato, I am afraid that I will become a human being in an instant. Yin Nine Tails suddenly raised his head, and he felt the familiar fluctuations. The same action as the Yang Nine Tails in Uzumaki Kushina's arms. From Wooden Golem, a watermelon. After Kushina handed Wooden Golem a piece of watermelon, she took another bite of the watermelon in her hand. I tell you, this is a Seishin watermelon from Tsunade, which is far sweeter than ordinary watermelons. Thanks. Wooden Golem glanced at the girl with a bright smile, silently nibbling on the watermelon. To be honest, since coming to Konoha, except for the restricted movement, the rest have been doing quite well. Even the weight has quietly increased. According to this kind of life, in a few years, she might become a chubby girl. Watching dramas, playing games online, delicious and delicious. She felt that she was going to be corrupted by Konoha's life. Cloud Shinobi Village advocates force, but in other respects, it is far inferior to Konoha. Not to mention beautiful jewelry, dazzling clothes, complex and diverse cosmetics, and so on. Although Wooden Golem is admired in Cloud Shinobi Village, she is Jinchuriki after all and has no real friends. And Kushina is the tail beast Jinchuriki like her, but with more friends. Especially she also has a boyfriend, Namikaze Minato. The more she understands, the more she feels that Konoha is like a dreamy paradise. Wooden Golem stared at the ruddy watermelon in a daze. Don't know how Konoha and Cloud Shinobi Village's battle was. And where is your future? There are old friends again. Yang Nine Tails jumped out of Kushina's embrace, and it has sensed the chakra of 8 tails. And its state is the same as Yin Nine Tails, it is wild. It's not that it admires it, it just proves that Jinchuriki of 8 tails is dead. When it comes to Cloud Shinobi Village, it is easy to think of the ins and outs. 2. If a strong player like Haruki takes action, Cloud Shinobi Village has no chance of victory. Kurama, what's the matter? Kushina heard what it said and couldn't help asking, who is the old friend? It's just that both Nine Tails looked at her subconsciously. Noting this, Yin Yang Nine Tails hummed softly at the same time. Oh, I forgot again, there are 2 Kuramas. Kushina stuck out her tongue and smiled. Xiaoyang, tell me. Don't call me Xiaoyang. Anger appeared on Yang Nine Tails' little face. What a ghost name. Kushina raised her fist and threatened. If you are not satisfied, go and talk to the teacher. Yang Nine Tails suddenly fell dejected. Say what? The sudden sound made Kushina startled. She turned her head and looked surprised. Teacher, why are you back? The war is over. Where is Minato? Sure enough, I grew up and turned my arm out. Haruki couldn't help but smiled. Minato will take a while, I'm back for something. Oh. Kushina was obviously less interested, and she noticed the behemoth behind Haruki, 8 tails. Haruki looked at the 2 tails and said, I will leave it to you for a while. After a few more conversations with Kushina, he came to Konoha's Hokage building. As for the wooden golem, I ignored it from beginning to end. He was raised as a tailed beast, and it was up to her own choice whether to submit. Anyway, Cloud Shinobi Village will no longer exist in the future. Yo, Orochimaru, how hard are you so hardworking? Orochimaru, who was immersed in the file, heard a familiar and disgusting voice, raised his head, and looked at Haruki coldly. Ended. No, but I caught back more than 4,000 Iwagakure ninjas. You can deal with them, they are lying in the east of the Death Forest. Iwagakure, aren't you fighting Cloud Shinobi Village? I can't tell for a while, you wait for information. Orochimaru looked at the disappearing Haruki, and couldn't help but twitched his mouth. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 205 Susanoo and Bing Dun Young White, 3 in 1. The east blue shore of the Land of Fire. Uchiha Makoto silently looked at the endless sea. There is no end to the blue sea and blue sky, to be honest, a bit boring. Although as a qualified ninja, you shouldn't have such emotions, but Makoto has been patrolling here for nearly half a month, and a Kirigakure ninja has never been seen. In other words, she did nothing. For a strong person, it is inevitable to feel overkill. Coupled with Haruki's constant success in the Thunder Country, her teammate Namikaze Minato gained a great reputation. And she did nothing by herself, it's not jealous. It's just that she bears the name of the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, so I can't be too sorry for this name. Patriarch. A young man appeared, saluted, and said, to the southeast, we found a small boat with 7 ninjas on it. Only 7. Kirigakures. Makoto was slightly disappointed when he heard that. What the 7 ninjas could do was mostly passing by. It's Kirigakure. After comparing our looks, we found that it was 7 warlords of the sea. 7 warlords of the sea is the former 7 warlords, right? Makoto immediately became interested, and the famous 7 ninjas can be called the elite ninjas in Kirigakure. The portion is sufficient. Just to be able to try out her new features of Sharingan. Well, Patriarch, I have sent someone to investigate, except for the 7 of them, there are no other ninjas. I suspect that Kirigakure's purpose is to let the 7 of them raid Konoha and take advantage of the fire. As the young man spoke, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He has received professional training, and he generally wouldn't laugh in front of the Patriarch on such occasions, unless he couldn't help it. The 7 ninja swords are indeed Jonin among Jonin, their strength is amazing. He can understand Mizukage's ideas, but Mizukage obviously doesn't understand Konoha's development over the past few years. Not to mention that the 7 ninja swords came to Konoha, I am afraid that this coastline would not be able to pass. Even if Makoto let them enter Konoha, they would be devastated instantly. Perhaps because of trust in my own strength, I have not concealed my figure. Patriarch, do you want me to call other people over? No, just leave it to me. Makoto waved his hand. It was a rare opportunity to test his own strength, and he couldn't miss it. Since owning Mangekyo Sharingan, she has not had many opportunities to use it. The only few times it was used by the Uchiha clan. But her eye's ability was too restrained. So far, he has never let go of a battle between hands and feet. And the 7 ninja swords are good whetstones. The strength is enough, but it is not as unsolvable as Haruki. Okay. The young man nodded and left without saying anything. He had gone through the Night of Genocide in the Illusion Edition. Knowing the strength of Makoto, there is no need to worry too much. With those eyes, the entire Uchiha clan could not resist, let alone these 7 people. Makoto looked at the sea until she saw the boat the young man had said. She walked to the beach and waited for their arrival. One person. Loquat Juzo, who was holding a broken and decapitated knife, noticed Makoto's unconcealed figure. The orange-haired watermelon mountain blowfish ghost raised his head, expressionless. It's Konoha's ninja. He frowned slightly, always feeling a little strange. GG, a good start. The speaker was a lanky ninja with a long beard on his chin. There are no pairs. His knife is called Explosive Knife Flymo. From the outside, it looks like a huge scroll with a knife handle, full of dense initiating charms, and the other side is an ordinary knife. Mostly it was a mistake. As the distance approached, the watermelon mountain blowfish ghost did not find other ninjas. Then there is only one possibility left. Otherwise, any Shinobu village knows that they shinobi 7 people, it is impossible to send a ninja to meet the enemy. Who will deal with it? I won't go, there is only one person, it's boring. Wu Li curled her lips very much. He liked big scenes, so the detonation talisman would be very refreshing. I go. The speaker was a short male who looked like a teenager due to height problems. He wears a hairstyle that looks like a pyramid, with thick black circles around his eyes. His knife is exceptionally big, double sword flounder. Wrapped in a bandage, he was carried on his back, and he looked bigger than his whole person. After the young man had finished speaking, he walked straight into the sea and landed on the beach. He glanced at Makoto, didn't know, had no impression. Such a small person does not have the desire to speak. He directly took out the flounder and took off the bandage, revealing the knife like a fathead fish. The two round holes on the knife, after being exposed to air, eject blue gas, making the flounder glow. The next moment, the light formed a thick light, which gushed out. The strong chakra fluctuations caused Makoto's long hair to drift backwards. Under the cover of countless blue rays, Mangekyo's Sharingan turned on. After obtaining Senju Hashirama's cells, Makoto can use the power of her eyes moderately. Huang Quanjin in the right eye is useless for non-pupil surgery. She uses the left eye of Yifu Yezaka. A blue beam of light covered her body. Seeing this, the young man couldn't help but sneered. What kind of trash can't even hide? But immediately he was taken aback. Out of his understanding of Flounder, he noticed that his attack did not hit. Illusion. He glanced at Makoto in the center, his expression stunned. When is the matter? The young man immediately looked around, trying to find her real body. At this moment, what he thought was Makoto of illusion, took out a white short sword and slashed directly at him without any bells and whistles. The youth subconsciously raised the flounder to block it. But short sword seemed illusory, passing directly through its wide blade. Sure enough, it's a fantasy. He only heard a bang, and his head fell to the ground. His eyes were so wide that he couldn't squint. His last thought is, what kind of illusion is this? The 6 people, including the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Fish Ghost on the boat, were all stunned. From their point of view, after the youth came ashore, he untied the flounder, and the chakra light attack appeared automatically. Makoto ignored the light and chopped off the young man's head with one knife. Relaxed and happy, as if the youth is not influx of genin. But he is one of the 7 ninja swords, the famous Kirigakure Jonin. How could this be? Has a problem. There was a chill in the heart of the Watermelon Puffer Fish Ghost. No matter how arrogant they were from Yamato, they became extremely cautious when they saw that a companion no less than their own was killed by a single blow. Her eyes seemed to be Sharingan. Wu Li Jinba was a little uncertain. He has seen Sharingan, but they are all in the shape of Guyu. The only difference is the number of Guyu. But there are black triangular shield knives in her eyes. Even Sharingan shouldn't be so easy. No one can answer the doubts of the Watermelon Puffer Fish Ghost, but they cannot turn their heads back. If it spread out, the ninja swordsmen just met a Konoha ninja and fled, and their reputation would have fallen to the bottom. Besides, Kirigakure couldn't believe their rhetoric either. She has only one person. No matter how powerful she is, she can't beat the 6 of us together. The Watermelon Puffer Fish made a decisive decision, and the boat, driven by water style, arrived at the shore. When he got close, he suddenly felt that Makoto was a little familiar, where he had seen it. It's you, Uchiha Makoto, the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, who offers a reward of 50 million taels. Watermelon Puffer Fish Ghost thought for a moment, remembering that he had seen her details in the black market bounty. The above is a new patriarch of Uchiha who started 3 Tomo Sharingan. He has outstanding performance, but he is not a top powerhouse. 20 million of them are due to Sharingan, and 30 million are due to her identity. But almost no one took orders. One is that her long-term range of activities is in Konoha. Even if she goes out on missions, she is with her teammates or clansmen. Second, as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, she may not be particularly powerful, but considering the power of the Uchiha clan, everyone has to weigh. The Watermelon Puffer Ghost now recalls her information. He seriously suspects that there is a ghost in the black market. Directly kill one of the 7 ninja swords. Is this called a top powerhouse? I believe in your evil, but no matter how you complain now, it doesn't make any sense. He slowly held the broadsword Samahata, and said in a deep voice, the information on the black market is wrong. Everyone is careful about her illusion. We have 6 people. It is impossible to get all illusions. Let's do it together. And Makoto has never said a word since we met. Even if the identity was broken, there was no response. Although the Watermelon Puffer Fish Ghost is a bit confused, as an enemy, there is no need to ask anything. After he finished speaking, his body turned into a whirlwind, and the heavy Samahata smashed out simply and roughly. Makoto did not move at all. Behind her, a huge pale red palm suddenly appeared, blocking Samahata at an extremely fast speed. Only a rumbling sound was heard. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost flew back, fell on the ground, stepped on 2 deep pits, and his right arm felt sore. What kind of ninjutsu is this? He looked at the huge arm that enveloped Makoto incredulously. Susanoo. Makoto said lightly, does the 7 ninja swordsmen have the ability? Asshole. You look down on us, go to hell. Taunting Pullman, almost without hesitation, the 6 people drew their ninja swords and rushed towards Makoto. You only have one arm. I see how you block it. Loquat Juzo was a little late, and then the decapitated broadsword slashed towards her head with a strong wind. In the next moment, he only felt that the entire blade was trembling. This is cut somewhere extremely hard, caused by the rebounding force. He raised his head and couldn't help his eyes widening. Makoto was now enveloped by a huge skeleton with only the upper body but exposed ribs. And the position he just cut was a rib. Loquat Shizang could see clearly that there were no scars on it, not even white marks. It seemed that what he had in his hand was not a decapitating broadsword. He couldn't believe his eyes. Get out of me. Loquat Juzo roared, and the decapitating sword in his hand opened and closed, and the sword energy matched chakra. After the first one, it was the second one, from top to bottom, like a mountain, trying to suppress Makoto. The other 5 people immediately walked away. Although they said they wanted to do it together, swordsmanship was more fierce than swordsmanship, and it was easy to accidentally injure their companions if they were not careful. Makoto's response is very simple. 2 huge arms fold together from both sides. Blood splattered. The watermelon mountain puffer ghost and others suddenly contracted their pupils and died. Just died like this? Take a random shot? Really hell. The palms spread out, leaving only a beheading knife in place. Its excellent material and hardness keep it from breaking. But the Loquat Shizang was so terrible that even the clothes could not be identified. It seems that there is no need for the next form. Makoto, who had been standing still, said suddenly. Susanoo is the third power that can only be activated when Mangekyo Sharingan is activated. And its form is divided into several different stages. Makoto has just started the first form, with only the skull-shaped upper body. Full body, with armor and weapons, and the body is complete, comparable to the tail beast. Chakra is stable, can perform ninjutsu and can fly. Wu Li's eyes are red after hearing this. He was the most cruel and ruthless in his daily life, and he was suddenly despised by a woman and couldn't stand it immediately. Li Hao Chuan won. While Wu Li's figure moved, she called out a person's name. Among the 7 ninjas, the 2 have the same personalities and have the best relationship. Kuriha Kushimaru was holding a weapon that looked like a long needle. Hearing Mori Jinhachi's call, the expression under Kirigakure Anbu's mask did not change much. His slender limbs bend slightly, exploding at ultimate speed, which is 1 step faster than Wooly Jinba. The whole body of chakra poured into the body of the long knife stitching knife during the assault, making this weapon emit a dazzling light. He let out a breath and arrived in front of Susanoo with a swift speed. His eyes swept past, and the stitches slammed into the skeleton's ribs. With a click, the needle sharply broke through the line of defense and was about to have a chance to touch Makoto. It's now. Li Shikuban licked the corner of his mouth, showing a cruel smile. He couldn't wait to penetrate and stitch the Uchiha Patriarch. Hearing this, he didn't need more words, he already knew what to do. He swiftly rotated the knife handle, and the knife face covered with detonating talisman forcibly jammed the gap created by the stitches. You go! Wu Li yelled, but without any waiting, the detonation talisman exploded. The scorching airwaves surge. The scroll in his blasting knife and droplets has no fewer than 1,000 detonating charms. Suddenly burst at this time. As if a volcanic crater erupted, the ultimate flame was spreading around the knife centered on it. He was the first to bear the brunt and was thrown away 10 meters away. However, Wooly Jinba has been playing Initiation Amulet for a long time after all, and he knows them well. Although they have suffered shockwaves, they are actually not injured. On the other side, Li Shikuanwen was a little bit more miserable. He was reminded, but this time Wu Li Jinba used too many detonating charms, and the range was wider than ever before. The whole body was severely burned, but somehow survived. He did not blame his companion and friend. For him, facing a strong man with terrifying power like Makoto, he will also choose to go all out. Thick smoke billowed. The 5 people looked nervously at the situation in the court. The first thing that catches the eye is the dilapidated beach, which seems to have been passed by a storm. Nothing can be seen at all. Then there is the samurai with a light red color up to 100 meters. He was covered in heavy armor, with a 40-meter-long knife in his right hand and a round shield in his left. Makoto is located inside his body and looks unremarkable. The atmosphere on the entire coastline completely stagnated at this moment. The 5 people remembered what Makoto said earlier. It really had a more terrifying form. Is this ninjutsu in particular? Run. Run away. The watermelon mountain puffer ghost lost his usual calm and roared with all his strength. The remaining 4 people immediately dispersed. Makoto snorted, not seeing her move, and the samurai behind him held up the sword and slashed. Before the sword came, a big storm seemed to have occurred over the watermelon mountain puffer ghost. The strong wind and waves made his whole person float up quickly. The watermelon mountain puffer fish felt a powerful knife, and subconsciously wanted to lift Samahata. But as a living knife, Samahata forcibly broke free at this time, flashed slightly, threw it high, and escaped first. Its perception is better than the watermelon mountain puffer fish ghost, and it will die if it stays. The desire to survive makes it careless of its owner. The watermelon mountain puffer fish had its ghost eyes splitting, but he was helpless after all, because the next second he lost his life and fell into eternal darkness. Makoto glanced at the well-behaved Samahata, did not say anything, and looked at the fastest runner, Kuri Shikuban. He has reached the surface of the sea. The look in his eyes just made her very uncomfortable. The body of the samurai that Susanoo transformed into was shocked, and a pair of huge wings grew behind him. Li Shikuanwen sensed the approaching wind, took the opportunity to look back, and couldn't help but burst into death. NS. Such a big thing can still fly? Is it reasonable? But this is already his last complaint. The 40-meter sword of the samurai followed like a shadow. Li Shikuanwen's body was divided into 2 halves and was carried away by waves over 100 meters. The blood stained red and disappeared instantly. Makoto raised his eyes to her other targets. There are 3 others. There are no pairs, wild bait people, Black Hose Thunderteeth. As Kirigakure ninjas, they are not only good at swordsmanship, but also good at water style. At the moment, next to the beach, the 3 of them are like swordfish, heading towards the country of water madly at the fastest speed in their lives. Makoto frowned slightly. The 3 people divided into 3 directions, completely different. The samurai flapped its wings. The sea is dented downward by the strong wind. Wu Li's face turned pale. How is it me? Damn, I knew I wouldn't be so impulsive before. He has run out of detonators on the knife and can only use water style. Wu Li Ziba gritted his teeth and quickly formed a seal. Now it is the ocean, his home court, there is still a chance, not necessarily dead. With him as the center, the water surface tens of meters in radius suddenly boiled. For the first time, Murray Jinpachi poured out all the chakra in the body without reservation. A 40-meter-long water dragon roared towards Susanoo. Like its owner, full of the breath of desperate struggle. The samurai did not use his sword this time, he opened his mouth. The extremely terrifying flame spewed out. There are countless sparks cheering and jumping in the air. Richness becomes the essence. The rising chakra turns into a great fireball on the way. Murray Jina recognized this ninjutsu, fire-style great fireball technique. The iconic ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, but it is too big. Together with the water dragon, woolly Jinba, and more than 10 meters of seawater evaporates. The fog is permeated. A fire pit appeared in the center of the mirror like seawater. It is simply against the iron law of nature. Makoto lifted off again, sensing the spread. She found the nearest target, wild bait people through the grass. A middle-aged man, his knife is a dull kabuto cut, looks like an axe and a hammer. The 2 are connected by an iron chain. Among the 7 ninja swords, this sword has a super attack power. Usually first cut with a knife, and then hit the back of the knife with a hammer to increase strength, claiming to be able to defeat all defenses. But facing Susanoo, who was more than 100 meters away, the grass bait man felt like a pedicure maker. Still the worst kind. In despair, he raised a blunt knife kabuto cut. In the next moment, his body was shattered by the powerful force through the blade, turned into a blood foam and disappeared into the sea. Makoto's face was calm, as if he had done a trivial thing and turned around. There is the last Black Hose Thundertooth left. A young man with long green hair holding thunder knife teeth. Makoto felt his trail and frowned slightly, he ran so far. But she didn't intend to let him go. After all, 6 of the 7 ninja swords have died, and if the last one is not solved, it'll. Chapter 206. The New God of Ninja World, 4th and 5th. After Uchiha Makoto and Shiro met, they did not return directly to Konoha, but continued to lead him to track the Black Hole Leifong. She is more than enough to protect Bai Chuo with her strength. At the same time, she began to teach Bai some basic ninjutsu. Although Bai possessed the rare ice escape, no one himself taught him and knew nothing about ninjas. Fortunately, he is young and it is not too late to learn. After the Haruki on the other side left Konoha, he came back to Mihariyama Castle. He is worried that Konoha's 10,000 ninjas cannot control the 20,000 ninjas of Cloud Shinobi Village. After all, the number occupies an overwhelming advantage, and if something goes wrong, it is still very dangerous. At the same time, he went back to Konoha, and it wasn't that he didn't bring anything. A lot of food. The consumption of 30,000 ninjas is not small. After sending the grain to the Mihariyama Castle granary, he had a sage body and felt tired. After coming and going, using Flying Thunder God technique, almost exhausted most of his chakra. In addition, he had previously used several large-scale wood styles frantically. It is impossible for chakra to recover so quickly. Changing to any other ninja would be exhausted long ago. Haruki left the granary and nodded when he saw the ninja in Cloud Shinobi Village still lying on the ground. His wood style effect is very lasting, it is very satisfying. When he came to the lobby, Uchiha Fugaku was holding a pair of Sharingan, interrogating the ninjas of Cloud Shinobi Village with illusion. Haruki glanced, a little surprised. It was a teenage girl. Long white hair and dark brown skin. Rao is that he has seen a lot of Cloud Shinobi Village ninjas, but such colors are still relatively rare. It's a fight against the black-skinned elves in the previous anime. According to his instructions, Fugaku should be interrogated from the very beginning of Jonin. Why are you interrogating a girl? However, Haruki did not interrupt his interrogation. After all, maintaining illusion is not easy. He could see that Fugaku's condition was not very good, his face was deeply tired, as if his body was hollowed out. After using Sharingan for so long, even he couldn't stand it. And he does not have Mangekyo Sharingan. You can only interrogate one person and use Sharingan once. The pupil power and chakra declined more severely. Originally, according to the anime's settings, Fugaku should have opened Mangekyo Sharingan in the Third Ninja War, this time, witnessing the death of a friend. But after Haruki's entanglement, let alone Mangekyo Sharingan, Fugaku has never fought much. His only role is to act as an interrogator. It is estimated that they did not expect such a result. The Uchiha clan who planned to make a contribution to their career eventually became Anbu's assistants. Haruki touched his chin. Would you like to think of a way to open his eyes? After the interrogation, Fugaku immediately noticed a malice. He turned his head subconsciously, seeing Haruki's scrutiny gaze, his heart suddenly tightened. It made him reflect on whether he did something wrong and offended him. Fugaku bit his scalp and bowed forward and asked, Haru-sama, when will you be back? Just now. Haruki looked at the girl who hadn't awakened from the illusion, and asked, who is this? Azabui. Fugaku was relieved when he saw him shift the target, and said quickly, don't look at her young, but she is very calm and smart, serving as 4th Raikage's secretary. I see. After Fugaku said this, Haruki remembered that the original work did have such a number 1 character. In the 4th Ninja World War, he served as the commander with Nara Shikahisa and others. Her strength is Jonin, nothing surprising. It's just that her master has a time-space ninjutsu and Tienshu technique. Unaffected by any conditions and areas, any item can be transported to any location at the speed of light. It sounds similar to Flying Thunder God technique. But if it is used to transport people, it must have an extremely strong body, otherwise it will be torn apart. In the original work, only 4th Raikage and Tsunade have been successfully transmitted. After a few conversations between the two, Mabui woke up, noticed Haruki, his body trembled, fell silent, and said nothing. Obviously Haruki left her a very deep impression, or shadow. Fugaku waved his hand, and someone immediately took her down and settled. Among the 3 methods that Haruki said, she belonged to a high level who could be wooed. No matter what the psychology is, Mabui is very cooperative. Haruki guessed that she might have the Green Hills, not afraid of not having firewood. And such ideas will occupy the majority of Cloud Shinobi. After all, facing the choice of life and Cloud Shinobi Village, not everyone has the courage to choose Cloud Shinobi Village. Haruki doesn't care, this kind of thinking is the easiest to change. According to Konoha's current lifestyle and education, he has the confidence to give these Cloud Shinobi Village guys a reshaping of the 3 views. Just like a program metamorphosis in the previous life, poor children in rural areas get used to the prosperous life in the city, they will have a huge gap and change psychologically. Basically it is difficult to go back. Haruki chatted with him a few more words. The biggest problem now is the lack of people. The early stage was fine, but as Cloud Shinobi wakes up more and more, 10,000 people will definitely not be able to guard 20,000 people. Haruki thought for a moment. If the number is not enough, let's make a clone. He left the wood clone with 1/5 of his chakra. If Cloud Shinobi rebels, it will be more than enough to deal with them. However, in this case, Haruki's ontology ushered in the least chakra period in history. Although it is still many times more than ordinary Jonin. Haruki dared to do this, naturally considering that the current war has almost subsided. The ordinary army of Thunder Country does not need his intervention too much. The general trend of Cloud Shinobi Village is gone, and it is difficult to cause a storm. As for other Shinobu villages, I guess they dare not come again. Haruki used the wood style to fight more than 25,000 ninjas. The movement is too big. Before the war, it had already attracted the attention of the ninja world. His strength and the result of this war probably began to spread in various Shinobu villages at this time. A peak in the middle of the Mitake Mountains. There is a village deep in the clouds. It is Cloud Shinobi Village. Even in fine weather, you can hear the thunder from time to time. 4th Raikage took away nearly half of the population, and the busy streets in the past also seemed deserted. Only the Raikage building is full of ninjas, but as deserted as the street, it can even be said to be dead. All the remaining Jonin in Cloud Shinobi Village, plus Anbu and staff responsible for maintaining the daily operations of Cloud Shinobi Village, total 43 people, all in Raikage's office. And sitting in Raikage's position is Darui. He had suffered some injuries in the Chunin exam, and Cloud Shinobi Village needed to stay behind a high-profile ninja town. So he was chosen. But Darui was silent like the many ninjas in front of him at this moment. He stared blankly at the intelligence on the desktop. In 4th Raikage, 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee died in battle, and 20,000 Cloud Shinobi was captured. I watched it for a long time. When he first saw this information, he firmly believed that it was fake news. How could the invincible Lord Raikage die in battle? But Anbu doesn't make jokes about this kind of thing. The most important thing is that the scenes described in the intelligence are very real. Although it looks like a novel, the very details can't be written if you haven't read it. Darui picked up the intelligence with trembling hands. At the end, Anbu left a word. Run away. Haruki is already another Senju Hashirama, the god of the ninja world. I am really helpless. Revolving heaven is useless. Please run away, Lord Darui, leaving Cloud Shinobi Village with the last vitality. After sending the message back, the Anbu ninja died. Almost as his heartfelt words. Darui raised his head, looked at the people in front of him, and forced himself to calm down. Everyone must have known the bad news, but there is not much time left for us, and we can't even carry on the sad mourning. Once Konoha village has settled the matter, it will inevitably come down to the city, and then we will not have any chance. So what should we do now? There was silence. Darui waited for a long time before he saw his teammate Sam Yibo slightly and calmly said, The intelligence is very clear. Darui, take someone out of Cloud Shinobi Village. Darui gave an ugly smile. He didn't want to leave in such a dingy way. But what is desperate is that Sammy is right. This is the only way at present. In addition, in the face of absolute strength, no amount of action is meaningless. Moreover, even if they escape, whether they can succeed is a question mark. There is no time to think about it, Darui. Samui reminded again, we don't know when Konoha's army will arrive. The longer it is, the more dangerous it will be. If you don't leave, there will be no chance. Do you want to see the Raikage line completely disappear in the ninja world? Darui's body was shaken, and his heart was finally cruel. He got up and said with a heavy face, Samui said it well, but even if we want to escape, we can't leave all. The more people there are, the less hope we will leave. Although it is cruel, there is no way. Everyone in the office nodded. Without knowing how Konoha would treat them, with such a reaction, the unity of Cloud Shinobi Village can be seen in Madara. After all, in the past wars of the ninja world, the ninja village who lost will generally end up not so wonderfully. Darui couldn't help but feel a little moist in his eyes. But he was too late to be sad. After some discussion, there were only 30 ninjas who left Cloud Shinobi Village, divided into 10 teams, walking in different directions to cover the safe evacuation of Darui's team. As a descendant of Raikage, Darui, as long as he can escape, Cloud Shinobi Village will not really perish. In addition, most of the ninjas who choose to escape are orphans, and they are helpless. The remaining ninjas, because they have children or family members captured by Konoha, cannot bear to abandon them, so they are waiting for the judgment of fate. Darui looked at Cloud Shinobi Village on the top of the mountain with mixed feelings. Finally gritted his teeth and embarked on the endless escape road. Cloud Shinobi Village is almost the first shinobi village to receive information. After all, it is a personal participant. In addition, there is another shinobu village that is no less speedy than it. Iwagakure. Onoki flees all the way frantically, not daring to stop at all. Even if he entered the territory of the land, he didn't feel safe at all. He didn't stop and gasp for breath until he returned to Iwagakure. Most of the chakra in the body is used to drive. Now that I see the familiar building, I can't help but tears into my eyes. But he knew that he had offended a ninja who shouldn't be offended. Haruki. It is the new god of ninja world. Even if they tie all the ninjas of Iwagakure and the tail beast together, it will never be his opponent. Onoki regrets now, very regretful. Regret not at the beginning. Why did you do such a stupid thing on your own? Isn't it good to stay home? Onoki looked hesitant. Although Haruki did not catch up, how would Konoha treat them? If it was like Cloud Shinobi Village, he would become a sinner through the ages. He barely got up and returned to his office. Who? As Tsuchikage's escort, Akazu noticed chakra in the office and his face changed. The round body shape did not affect his speed at all, and he pushed the door to enter in an instant. Tsuchikage-sama. Why are you back? Because Iwagakure is relatively isolated from the world and far from the land of thunder. The news of Anbu has not yet come back, so Akato was surprised to see Onoki. Has the war been won? Onoki's face turned dark when he heard this. The victory was someone else's. They didn't get anything from Iwagakure, and even lost 5,000 ninjas. He still doesn't know how to confess. Because of his wrong decision, Iwagakure suffered a huge loss, enough to make him retreat from Tsuchikage's position. But there are still more serious things than this. Ignoring the terracotta problem, Onoki said with a heavy face. Immediately order all ninjas who are outside to suspend their missions and return to the village. No matter who they are, no matter what the mission is, they must follow them, otherwise, they will be regarded as betraying the village. Terracotta was immediately shocked. What's happening here? He couldn't help saying, Master Tsuchikage, if this is the case, we will lose a lot of income and our own credibility. A catastrophe is imminent. What's the point of this thing? Onoki seemed to endure to the limit, and his tone rose sharply. The terracotta froze in place. Could it be that the war failed? But even if it fails, it doesn't have to be this way, right? To see Tsuchikage means to make all ninjas stick to Iwagakure. Onoki's straight body loosened again. He leaned back on the office chair and leaned on his forehead. He sighed, Akato, this time it's my fault. Iwagakure has dragged Iwagakure to the edge of life and death. But I don't understand. Akato gritted his teeth, still couldn't resist the doubts in his heart, and asked, even if we lose, but we are only 5,000 ninjas, we Iwagakure can afford such a price, and our overall strength has not weakened too much. It is still the top 5. Village, how come it's life and death? It's Haruki. Onoki was silent for a moment, originally reluctant to talk about this person. We joined hands with Cloud Shinobi Village and met Haruki. Akatsuki thought about it for a few seconds before remembering who Haruki was. It's just a mere medical ninja. Medical ninja? Huh, we were all deceived. Onoki's eyes widened, and it was full of humiliation, anger, and fear. Dead. All dead. Raikage and 8 Tails are all dead. He is alone. Alone? It wiped out the army of more than 25,000 ninjas. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 207 The Red Dragon Banner Flying in the Kingdom of Thunder, 2 in 1. The battlefield outside Mihara Mountain Castle has become a forest at this moment. Lush and lush, stretches for thousands of miles. It is exactly the same as the dead forest outside Konoha. Somewhere shadow formed by the huge canopy. A head came out silently. An abnormally white head, naturally white Zetsu. He was the white Zetsu clone who was ordered to monitor the battle between Konoha village and Cloud Shinobi village, and to transmit information to Uchiha Madara in time for his analysis and intervention. With his superb stealth technique, white Zetsu has never been discovered. In yesterday's battle, he encountered the biggest crisis. He always felt that Haruki had found himself. Because of this, he has exhausted all his life learning to hide in the forest and has not dared to move. Only today came out cautiously. Yeah, it's the reincarnation of Senju Hashirama. Madara-sama should be happy. White Zetsu's tone was as serious as ever. If Uchiha Madara heard it, he would not be able to escape a severe beating. He had lingering fears and recalled the previous battle. It could not be called a battle, but a pure adult bullying a child. Haruki, I didn't expect that he was the mysterious wood-style ninja who had previously fought against Madara-sama. White Zetsu put away his daunting tone. Even he felt tricky. Uchiha Madara is now in his twilight years, and his strength is not as good as before. And Black Zetsu basically will not make a move before the plan is unsuccessful, so as not to be noticed. He has been lonely and hidden for thousands of years, and he has absolute patience. But Uchiha Madara is one of their best targets. It is extremely difficult to find the next one. White Zetsu sighed and sank into the ground again. He has nothing to do for the time being. Go back and report to Uchiha Madara. Dim underground base. Uchiha Madara relies on Geto statue to maintain his vitality. After a while, he looked up, saw White Zetsu, and asked, how is the final battle between Konoha village and Cloud Shinobi village? Is it bloody? Although he has never left here, he has heard White Zetsu report the situation before. Knowing that under Haruki's series of operations, Cloud Shinobi village was forced to go to Mihariyama Castle. And Cloud Shinobi village did not disappoint him, and directly assembled an army of 20,000 ninjas. As for Iwagakers joining halfway, it was even more unexpected. All in all, this battle must be extremely tragic. Konoha won a big victory. White Zetsu didn't have too much nonsense and straight to the point. Cloud Shinobi village and Iwagakure failed miserably, and the 25,000 ninja coalition was destroyed. What did you say? Uchiha Madara showed a surprised look. How is it possible? How can Konoha have such a strong strength? It's Haruki. He is the wood-style ninja who played against you in Water Country. White Zetsu explained quietly, rare and very serious. Uchiha Madara froze in place. After a long time, his complexion was a little flushed and angry. He thought of Haruki's brutal beating against him, just like Senju Hashirama. And Haruki is Tsunade's boyfriend. Isn't it the equivalent of being taken by Senju Hashirama's grandson? Thinking of this, he almost vomits blood. The Senju family is really bullying. Master Madara, what should we do now? Konoha has Haruki, and the unification of the Land of Thunder is almost a foregone conclusion. White Zetsu furrowed his brows and asked, maybe it's not just the Land of Thunder. If he wants to, the entire ninja world may even be possible. It's just a matter of chronology. But this is extremely detrimental to our plan. I know it naturally. Uchiha Madara was also a little irritable. It was clear that his resurrection plan had the hope of success, so why did a sunny tree pop up again? And the most troublesome thing is that Uchiha Obito is a student of Haruki. We must rush to Haruki and the country of rain to finish all our things, otherwise, it will be 100 times more difficult in the future. Uchiha Madara rubbed his forehead. He would never live to die another wood-style ninja. If Haruki intervenes and he guides Obito and Nagato's plan, there must be no chance. In front of a strong man comparable to Senju Hashirama, making small moves is too unclear. Since Tsunade appeared in the Rain Country, Hanzo has been difficult to threaten them. White Zetsu understands what Uchiha Madara means, but at the moment it is a little troublesome. Tsunade and Jiraiya can work together to lose Hanzo's greatest advantage. His poison is useless, and his strength is reduced by at least 1/3. He has Rain Shinobi village to help, but Akatsuki and Konoha are not weaker than them. Not to mention Haruki's 3 apprentices, Nagato's Rinnegan alone can get them into trouble. Although he is not as good as Madara-sama, Grandmaster Rinnegan is Rinnegan after all, and he only needs to play a small role to make Nagato's strength soar. It won't take too long before Hanzo will fail. White Zetsu shook his head and gave an ultimatum to the current battle in the Rain Country. The power of Hanzo is incapable and embarrassing. Uchiha Madara was silent for a moment and said, I can only go there. Although Shang Zhuan technique is very useful, but now he does not have Rinnegan, frequent use is likely to cause side effects. However, he has no other choice. Following White Zetsu's scream, Uchiha Madara took his body and left the underground cavity. Haruki glanced at White Zetsu when he left, but didn't do anything. On the contrary, he is more looking forward to what White Zetsu will do next. My own behavior will definitely stimulate Uchiha Madara. Regarding the Rain Country, he is not really worried. The only one who is slightly worried is Uchiha Obito. In the face of great excitement, don't know what choice he will make. Haruki thought for a while. After he was educated in a ninja school, he shouldn't fall into a deadlock like in the original work. As for how to develop, he will wait and see. Sunny Tree. Hitaki Tsukumo suddenly appeared on the wall, alongside Haruki. I received some information, you should be interested. What information? Haruki turned his head and glanced at him, probably guessing what it was. The first one is about Cloud Shinobi Village. Darui of 4th Raikage left Cloud Shinobi Village with 30 people and disappeared. Do we need to send someone to solve them? It's not necessary, it's just a bereaved dog. Haruki smiled and shook his head. He really wanted to see the scene where Darui tried his best to revenge, only to find that the original Cloud Shinobi had completely reconciled. Hitaki Tsukumo nodded. They don't have any extra manpower to deal with 30 people. What's more, he is confident, Darui and others can't make any waves. Even if you want to solve it, treat it as a touchstone for younger generations. The second piece of information is about Iwagakure. Tsuchikage Onoki recalled the ninjas who were outside and increased Iwagakure's defenses. Haruki couldn't help laughing when he heard the words. Unexpectedly, Onoki, known as the strongest Tsuchikage, was shocked. But he had no plans to take Iwagakure down. In accordance with the traditional virtues of flower growers, one step at a time, after thoroughly digesting Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village, consider other countries. Fighting them all at once, how could he have so many talents to manage the entire ninja world? The foundation is unstable and it is easy to hurt yourself. The third piece of information was sent by Minato. Hitaki Tsukumo handed him the scroll. It's not a trouble, you know it at first glance. Haruki opened the scroll with great interest, looked at the last piece of information, and smiled immediately. It just so happened that I planned to go there. He returned the scroll to Hitaki Tsukumo. With my wood clone here, there should be no problem. To the north of the Mitake Mountains is a plateau. But when it is said to be a plateau, it is actually surrounded by towering mountains. Only after crossing the central part, there will be a low elevation plain. Going further, you will reach the end of the mountain range, where the metropolis of Thunder Country is located. At this time, Namikaze Minato and his 160,000 army are repairing in the middle of the Mitake Mountains. After several days of pursuit, their group was almost invincible, and they took half of the land of Thunder Country. But the ordinary army has its limits after all. It happened to be blocked again, so Minato planned to stop and rest for 2 days. Suddenly he raised his head, familiar fluctuations. He stood up, looked at Haruki who appeared out of thin air, and said hello, teacher. Haruki nodded as a response. He glanced at the army around him. There was not much attrition. How is the situation now? We originally followed the defeated army all the way north and headed straight for the metropolis. But yesterday, the scattered Thunder Nation army was integrated, relying on the Miyaki mountain range to stop us in front of the Pingao Wing Plain. Things are not complicated. Minato called Haruki, just thinking that this person is a rare general. It would be a pity if he died here. This person is very capable. Haruki's eyes shimmered slightly. It can unite hundreds of thousands of soldiers who have lost their military spirit in one day, and command them to resist the army of the Country of Fire. I have to say that it is an extremely rare general. Haruki has always used Minato to command the Fire Nation's army, which is a waste of his strength. It would be great if someone replaced it. What's his name? Shudien. Minato replied. No last name? Haruki raised her brows and was a little surprised. He had no surname and was either an orphan or a slave. No, Minato shook his head and explained. Before the teacher came, I asked him to investigate his life experience. He had been the domestic slave of General Moriguchi of the Land of Thunder until yesterday. Then how did he become the current commander of the Thunder Country? Lei Zhiguo was devastated because of our attack, and teacher, you captured the high-level officers in the army, and the rest of the official posts will be the Moriguchi general. It may be that his life is endangered, and Shudien took the initiative to ask for it. I was convinced by this general and became the actual person in charge. No wonder you said he was interesting and useful for us. Haruki's eyes showed a little surprise. Shudien's experience was quite legendary. The only thing that puzzled him was why he didn't shoot earlier. He thought for a while. The possible reason was that Moriguchi had not yet reached the moment of crisis, so how could Moriguchi believe in a domestic slave? Only at this moment, he can only go to the doctor in a hurry. Haruki stood up and said with a smile. Let's go and meet the macho of Thunder Country for a while. Minato was startled slightly. A macho? It's another strange word from teacher Haruki. He had long been used to it, and he didn't say much, and ordered immediately. Following the actions of the Xuanzhou army, the entire army was fully operational. Although Minato has not fully mastered the 150,000 army, it can be controlled indirectly through the Xuanzhou army. The shocking movement awakened the opposing army. Shudien, who was hidden among the peaks, raised his head. He was able to repel Minato's army before, precisely because of this low, uneven but numerous mountain group. With his amazing dispatch, hundreds of thousands of troops were distributed among the peaks, deep trenches and high barriers were built, and with the help of crossbows, almost the entire mountain range was connected together to form a natural line of defense. But Shudien understands that the advantage is still no longer in the Land of Thunder. The reason is the defeat of Cloud Shinobi Village. As a result, the various ninja forces who originally served in the Country of Thunder fled. Even the Guardian Ninja 12 no one stayed. because as a ninja, they know what it means better than these nobles. Shurian can also understand. The commander on the opposite side, Namikaze Minato, heard that he was an extremely tough ninja. If he does not pay attention to military ethics, take an assassination action. They seem to have the upper hand, but in fact their lives and deaths depend on the preferences of others. Shurian's eyes narrowed slightly. The army of the Fire Nation spread out in a very normal position. But in front of such a complex terrain, it is basically of no use. Sure enough, after a while, they split several shares and entered the line of defense set up by Shurian. He looked at an army where Minato was, waited a moment, and raised the flag. The messenger left immediately. Haruki and Minato were in the middle army at this time. A row of flaming arrow feathers flew out of the mountain on the right, and then fell. Enemy attack. Before Haruki and Minato spoke, the army behind them moved on their own. Facing the arrow feathers, they are quite experienced in using shields to form a defensive array. Also at this time, horseshoes sounded behind him. I saw about 3,000 cavalry, side by side, rushing towards them at a very fast speed. Haruki is divided into 15 shares according to 10,000. At the same time, there were 3,000 soldiers on both sides, and within a few minutes, they were trapped in a circle. Seeing this, the other troops of the Fire Nation in the distance wanted to come here for rescue. But I saw arrow feathers flying out of the surrounding mountains. More huge rolling rocks blocked the narrow passages. Haruki only noticed how bad their position was. It's in your pocket. But it is a pity that the gap in strength cannot be smoothed out by strategy. Minato raised his long knife. 10,000 soldiers dropped the shields in their hands, their chests opened, and a set of armor covered the whole body at an extremely fast speed. Exoskeleton power suit, they are all Shuenja army. The killing began. Haruki's figure flickered and appeared in front of Shurian, who was pale. His position is certainly hidden, however, the several contacts of Lingbing revealed himself. Of course, the most important reason is Haruki's perception ability. Can clearly restore the movement trajectory of the messenger in order to infer the center point. Are you Shurian? Yes, Shurian is very cooperative. As a domestic slave, he is best a living. Haruki didn't do it directly, proving his worth to him. My lord, what do you want me to do? Give the rest of the defense of the Thunder Country? Or take someone to take down the metropolis? Yes, very smart. Haruki nodded in satisfaction. Shurian's performance satisfied him. It seems that Minato can be freed from the heavy military affairs. Haruki mentioned Hidenori, went to the two warring parties, and ordered them to stop with chakra. The killing of the Shuenja army scared the army of Thunder Country. There is also Shurian's comfort. In just one day, all the remaining troops of the Thunder Country were brought down. The mighty 310,000 army, from south to north, has gone through several battles, and every battle will win. With the momentum of thunder, the soldiers will come to the metropolis. The goalkeeper ran away watching the wind. Namikaze Minato boarded the city wall, cut down the flag that had been flying for thousands of years, and planted the red dragon banner of the Shah organization. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 208 Public Enemy of Ninja World, 2-in-1, Metropolis of Thunder Country. Before Haruki and Namikaze Minato led the army, a large number of nobles had fled with their families. But the daimyo Matsuda Reizu did not leave. It's not because he has the emperor to guard the country, Kunwang Shishiji's consciousness, but simply believes that he will not die. According to past practice, the war between Shinobu village is for resources. Matsuda Reizu only needs to delegate the tasks and entrustment of Thunder Country to Konoha village. At least he, or the nobles, think so. Haruki looked around the hall for a week. Most of the officials who caught his gaze showed a pleasing smile. The remaining part remained silent. There is almost no panic. Haruki couldn't help but want to laugh. This group of people occupied a high position for too long, thinking that they were just like them for status and benefit. Shurian. He looked at Matsuda Reizu, who was sitting high in the hall, without much emotional fluctuations on his face. We have now laid down the land of thunder. How do you think we should deal with the daimyo? As soon as this remark came out, Matsuda Reizu, who was already anxious, looked at Shurian subconsciously. He knows this young man. Only a few days ago, he appointed Shurian, who was born as a domestic slave, to be in charge of the army of Thunder Country. I thought I could turn the tide, but it was still unstoppable. Although Matsuda Reizu was irritated that he was a man on paper, he was kind to him at any rate, making him a step up to the sky. No matter what, he should also say a few good things to himself. The only thing I don't understand is why Haruki wants to ask him his opinion. Shurian also had doubts upon hearing this. Haruki had saved his life before, so it was obvious that he was valued. But this problem is not a trivial matter, it's simply about your own future. Shurian fell into silence. In just a few days, he also understood Haruki's character. Don't like nobles, so I can't speak to Matsuda Reizu. This is a question of position. But Hidenori could not decide Haruki's thoughts. After thinking about it, he tentatively said, it can make the daimyo a puppet of Konoha village. The nobles in the hall were suddenly startled, and the atmosphere was silent and solemn. Although they also expected it, Shudian said so unscrupulously, "Is the name shameless?" Matsuda Lizu looked embarrassed. Sure enough, he is a slave, so ugly to speak. He regretted his original decision. But now it is irretrievable, so I have to look nervously at Haruki, wondering how he will respond. Haruki thinks Hidenori is very smart. It was only because of his limitations that he came up with this seemingly bold suggestion that actually saved the nobles. It seems that some people are missing. Haruki looked at the nobles who had been summoned temporarily, and suddenly changed the subject. Some people fled the metropolis overnight. Minato Master is holding the intelligence of the army. The metropolis is the key monitoring city, he naturally knows. Send someone to catch them back, Haruki said casually. The nobles have always had money, but they can't let them go. Okay. Minato nodded, looked at the people in the hall, and asked, what do they do? Matsuda Reizu and others suddenly felt a tight heart, cold sweat on their foreheads with poor psychological quality. After all, it is about one's own life and future prosperity. When Nori heard the words, he raised his head and looked at Haruki. He is the best at observing people's minds, but Haruki can't understand it. So I am curious about his ideas. Kill it, Haruki said lightly. What? Shudian was dumbfounded, a little distrustful of her ears. As for the people in the hall, this is even more true. After a brief dead silence, Matsuda Lizu stood up first. He was no longer calm and yelled. How dare you do these things? Yeah. You are just a ninja. Without us, where did you get the money? Kill us, you will be blocked and opposed by everyone in Thunder Country. Various voices sounded in the hall, noisy like a vegetable market. In the face of death, the high-ranking nobles, like ordinary civilians, struggled to survive. Haruki promised that if he said something cruel, most of the people here would change their strategy and kneel down and beg for mercy instead. He smiled, didn't say anything, leaving the hall. Matsuda Reizu and others looked at each other, wondering what he meant by this action. Only Namikaze Minato, who stayed, knew Haruki and knew that he didn't want to bother with the nobles. He raised his hand blankly and ordered, kill them. The Xuanzhou army behind and on both sides showed their blades without any hesitation. All of a sudden, the smell of blood permeated. Shudian stared at this scene blankly. He couldn't understand why Haruki did this. Leave them behind and control the entire Thunder Country, isn't it? You don't need to bother yourself, sit and collect money. Now that the nobles are dead, and the upper strata of Thunder Country are completely vacant, how can we manage the lower strata of civilians? He doesn't think that ninjas can manage the country. Otherwise, there would be no such system as Shinobu Village. Besides, the education of ninjas determines their upper limit. If Haruki knew what he thought, he would naturally tell him that it was because of Konoha's difference. Konoha's education system has now been divided into two types. Ninja school and civilian school. With the university as the center, he has cultivated a considerable number of talents in 7 years. After Haruki captured the Land of Fire, he ordered these college students to go to various cities in preparation to establish a brand new regime. If you add Thunder Country, there are some shortcomings. Time is what he lacks. While Haruki was meditating, Minato and Hidenori walked out of the hall. He raised his head slightly and smelled the smell of blood in the air. Clean up here. Haruki waved his hand and ordered. Someone has already cleaned it, Minato replied. Well, you bring me the book that the Xuanzhou army records the merits of. Okay. Minato left immediately, and a few moments later he brought a lot of notebooks. Haruki took the top one and opened it. It is very clearly written in it, so and 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 so who murdered, how brave, about their personality and their combat style. So the trained and educated Xuanzhou army can surrender such detailed records. I plan to reappoint all levels of military officers first. Haruki groaned. Judging from the current situation, the Kingdom of Thunder will temporarily remain as it is for a period of time. After all, there are not enough people to make the transformation. At least wait for the Fire Country to achieve a certain effect before dealing with the Thunder Country. But the army is to do, and the master is in hand. Haruki had previously promised that those who had merit in the war would be promoted, but they were born in poverty and had no education. He is not at ease. Taking advantage of the fact that the war has just ended and Konoha's prestige and control are strongest, he must take targeted measures. After a little thought, Haruki said softly, Minato, you serve according to the merits based on these records, and after you determine the name list, you will immediately create the Konoha Military Academy, and everyone must enroll. Minato nodded. Such a move was in line with Haruki's behavior. He wanted to see the importance of education. He thought of a question. Teacher, if everyone gathers in one school, will it create a vacancy in the military of the two countries? Well, you reminded me. Haruki touched his chin, and now their army has reached more than 300,000, which is the total strength of the two countries. Getting together is not conducive to stability. No, it's not right. Since the Kingdom of Thunder has been laid down, this country should no longer exist. It's time to redefine the name of the country, but he can't decide this alone, he has to leave it to everyone to discuss. Haruki smiled and said, Minato, I will give you another task. I remember that you are a member of the executive department. It is up to you to propose this proposal. The Fire Country and the Thunder Country are divided according to the proportion of the population and the land area. Out of the war zone, each war zone has 20,000 to 30,000 troops stationed, and a military school is established. What do you think? Minato was startled slightly, his eyes brighter and brighter. This method is really indescribable. Compared with 5 families controlling 5 armies, this division of theaters avoids many of the previous problems. It not only effectively stipulates the scope of their respective protection, but also prevents the generals from supporting themselves. Okay, I will draw up related proposals, Minato replied. Well, you should do the preliminary work first, and then submit it in time to handle this matter. Haruki also thought that Konoha's major departments are actually not enough to manage the 2 countries, but now is not the right time. Wait for the end of the war and reform. Shudien on the side sounded a little dazed. A person who has lived in the country of thunder for a long time will naturally not understand Konoha's system. Therefore, I am at a loss as to the executive department and the bill. But the division of war zones that Haruki said made him very surprised. No one has thought of such an approach. Sure enough, Haruki didn't like the current aristocracy. Shudien thought, appointing penultimate soldiers in the army as officers, and having schools to educate them, is almost recreating a new nobleman. And it is more obedient, it's just that the cost and time of cultivation are relatively long. He still believes that Haruki belongs to the noble class. Shudien. Hearing his name, he quickly looked at Haruki. My lord, what's the matter for me? If you can graduate from a military school, I will let you be in charge of the military executive department. Shudien heard the executive department again. He remembered the Konoha executive department mentioned by Spearman. Minato is only one of the members, and he has to propose a case when he does things. As the name suggests, the military's executive department must have considerable power. Shudien took a deep breath and promised loudly, I will graduate perfectly. Minato smiled upon hearing this. He is the current person in charge, but he doesn't feel any grievances. Life in the army is good, but he prefers to be a ninja. Moreover, Tsunade's Hokage term is 2 years away. His wish since childhood was Hokage. Naturally, we have to fight for it. Just being in the army is not enough to be a Hokage. According to Konoha's current regulations, Hokage has quite a few preconditions. 3 of the most important points. 1 is prestige. After this war, his prestige reached its apex and it was enough. The second is a member of the Shah organization. He was already satisfied and was one of the first members. The third is to be familiar with the operation of various departments. What he lacks most at present is this condition. It means that in the next 2 years, he must go deep into various departments to experience and learn. Otherwise, the conditions will not be met at all, nor will it pass the assessments of Hokage, the Shah organization, and the policy department. The first Hokage is not yet so regulated, but the very complicated Hokage program started during the second term. Namikaze Minato once watched Tsunade being assessed. If it weren't for Konoha, it would be impossible to complete such an assessment. The second term was not without competitors, but all of them were defeated. One of the most important reasons is that the assessment fails. Yes, very energetic. Haruki patted Shudien on the shoulder and sniffed the air again. It seemed that there was no pungent smell of blood. He moved the pile of notebooks in front of him back to the main hall. He immediately closed the seal and separated a dozen clones. When Minato saw this, he also looked the same, divided into 3 clones. His chakra is limited. Besides, the number of people is enough. Only Shudien showed envious eyes. Hey, ninjas are really easy to use. If he is a ninja, using shadow clone technique to command the army, he will surely increase his winning rate. Haruki and Minato completed the task with super high efficiency. The appointment of tens of thousands of people quickly started. While the entire army was changing blood, everyone was very excited. Because it proves that Haruki's previous promise is not false. The new officers are their teammates and soldiers by their side, which greatly stimulates them. If Haruki ordered an attack on the land of the earth at this time, he would run over for fear of wailing. After the officers arrived, the land of fire and the land of thunder were divided into 30 theaters. Led by the Xuanjia armies separately, they rushed to various regions. Their work is not easy. The first thing is to clean up local bandits, and even wandering ninjas, which requires Konoha's help. Fortunately, Konoha now has a large number of ninjas, and he has enough manpower. The second thing is to investigate the nobles. If civilians are exploited for a long time, they can be eliminated without request. As for the new manager, Haruki couldn't help but have a headache. College students are not enough. Although Konoha continued to open various ordinary universities in the past 7 years, the combination of the country of fire and the country of thunder is too big. This is the trouble of happiness. For this, he can only meet the needs of the Fire Nation first. Thunder Country temporarily uses the army to keep it as it is. But ruling the country by the army is ultimately a stopgap measure. Since the establishment of the 5 major countries and the 5 major villages, the entire ninja world has been operating in accordance with specific rules. But Haruki's arrival broke the peace of the world. The Kingdom of Thunder was destroyed. After the news came, the names of the countries that reacted most violently. Daimyo, the country of water, first jumped out to condemn Haruki's behavior and demanded that the country of thunder be returned to the daimyo. Then came the name of the land, and in just one day, the country of fire and the country of soil formed an alliance. The speed is dizzying. Followed by the country of Taki, the country of snow, the country of grass, the country of river and so on. However, in 2 or 3 days, Haruki has become a public enemy of various countries. In particular, his actions to wipe out the nobles in the Thunder Country came out. Even the daimyo of the country of wind, who has always been silent, jumped out and said a few words, thinking that the behavior was too cruel. By the time 3rd Kazekage and Luo Sha found out, it was already a step too late. They suddenly had only one thought in their minds: do you want to kill the name and give Haruki to apologize? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 209 Hanzo's Ambush, 3rd and 4th. You now have a huge reputation in the entire ninja world. Hitaki Shigeru handed Haruki a scroll and joked, except for the first Hokage-sama Senju Hashirama, there may be no ninja as famous as you. If you are envious, I can help you. Haruki smiled and shook his head. What he ordered to do finally came to light. Especially for the large-scale liquidation of the 2 countries of the country of fire and the country of thunder, a large number of nobles were killed. If the killing of Kenjong Oda before can give Raikage the pot, but the death of Matsuda Reizu and the major nobles, there is no way to explain it. What's more, he himself was upright and honest, and he didn't even think about concealing it. No, I don't have this skill. Hitaki was frightened and waved his hand quickly. Worried by more than a dozen countries, how good is he? Dare not be. You are Konoha's White Fang anyhow, you are bolder. My title has nothing to do with the nobles, don't slander me. Hearing this, Hitaki asked with a smile, do you know what you are called by them? What? I got another title. Haruki raised an eyebrow. He and Tsunade were previously called Shwanbi Konoha, first because of their romantic relationship, and second because they are both top medical ninjas. Hitaki Tsukumo remembered the information he had obtained, with a hint of inexplicable emotion, and said, Konoha Butcher. Haruki stunned slightly and said, hey, it's just a group of courageous rats. Someone who wants to overthrow them appeared among the lower class, they thought, so I felt scared. He pointed to the scroll. In the original Chunin, the status of the person is actually not very high. At least in the early and mid-term, as long as you are hired, you can call for it. It is normal for nobles to look down on ninjas, but Haruki told them that this world did not belong to them after all. Hitaki Tsukumo glanced at the scroll and agreed and said, the Kingdom of Soil and the Kingdom of Water formed an alliance in one day, but they didn't dare to declare war on the Kingdom of Fire. He just verbally acted prestige and clearly feared us. As for the others, small countries are not to be feared, but what should our ally, the Wind Nation, do? I'm waiting for Tsunagakure's response. Haruki said, Konoha has done his best to Tsunagakure. If they don't know what is good or bad, they will bear the consequences. Hitaki Tsukumo remembered the 3rd Kazekage he had contacted, and said, Funkage is a person who knows the current affairs. He should understand that Tsunagakure's today is the credit of Konoha. Besides, if they completely cut off contact, at least the economy will be in recession by at least a third. Second, they cannot accept such consequences alone. Haruki nodded and stopped talking about Tsunagakure. He continued to analyze and said, Iwagakure has more than 4,000 people in our hands. Even if the land of the country wants war, it will not get the support of Onoki, let alone he has seen our forces. And Kirigakure must not dare to act rashly after the loss of the 7 ninja swordsmen. I have to say that Makoto's strength is amazing. Hitaki Tsukumo thought of the information on the scroll. Makoto single-handedly killed the famous 7 ninja swords and seized the 7 ninja swords, but he was safe and sound. This strength is even better than him. As expected to be your apprentice, the teacher is pervert, and so is the apprentice. Hitaki Tsukumo looked at Haruki and said, I already know the strengths of Minato and Makoto, don't you tell me that Kushina's strength is so terrifying? He didn't know that Kushina was 9 Tails Jinchuriki. The impression of Kushina is that of the Uzumaki clan, and the sealing technique is good. If you want to know, you can challenge her when you go back. Fortunately, you can tell, let me challenge your apprentice. Hitaki Tsukumo couldn't help but complain. If he wins, he bullies the small, but if he loses, he will not be guaranteed. It is impossible for him to do such a stupid thing. That's a pity. Haruki shrugged. Are you serious? Seeing his expression, Hitaki asked in surprise, is Kushina really that strong? It's okay to tell you. Haruki thought for a while, and according to Konoha's current situation, whether Jinchuriki is exposed or not has no effect. She is 9 Tails Jinchuriki. Hitaki twitched the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, I didn't listen to Haruki's nonsense and went heads up with Kushina. Although his strength is very good, but facing the strongest tail beast, it may be very difficult for him to win. He really wanted to ask if Haruki had eyes to see through the future? The apprentices I find are all geniuses, and they are extraordinary geniuses. The worst may be Nohara Lin. Even Obito and his son are rare geniuses, but Minato, Makoto and Kushina are too dazzling. It's more than enough to be a movie in another Shinobu village. Maybe I should also accept a few apprentices. Hitaki Tsukumo touched his chin. Apart from Kakashi, he has no other apprentices, but now Kakashi has stepped out of his own kendo, and can only be regarded as half of his mantle. Haruki, does Konoha have a swordsman genius? Hitaki thought of this and asked. Oh, why do you see my apprentice envious? Haruki couldn't help smiling when he heard this. My Konoha's white fang can't be too much, right? Hitaki Tsukumo spread his hands and said, at any rate, I'm also a great swordsman in the world of ninja. With his strength, it would be fine to say that he was a great swordsman. Haruki thinks slightly. Konoha doesn't seem to have a lot of swordsmanship yet, but Kirigakure and Cloud Shinobi Village are a lot. Oh, no, he suddenly thought of two people. Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. How come it's all Uchiha? Hitaki murmured and confirmed again, don't lie to me. I have nothing to lie to you. Haruki shook his head. He really didn't lie to him. Aside from Sharingan and Fire Style, Shisui and Itachi are really superb. What's more, Sharingan has a great blessing for swordsmanship. After seeing through the enemy's movements, the sword technique can be more fierce and precise. Okay, when I go back I will ask them both, Hitaki said with a smile. If third Hokage was still there before, and he categorically didn't dare to accept two Uchihas as apprentices, that would be asking for trouble. Now, it doesn't matter. After all, the Uchiha Patriarch Makoto is Haruki's apprentice. Haruki returned the information scroll to him and looked at the ninja in Cloud Shinobi Village outside the mountain castle. After interrogating Jonin of Cloud Shinobi Village, the rest speed was much faster. You can use illusion to check hypnosis once. Among them, more than 2/3 of the ninjas plan to return home and engage in normal ninja activities. The other third, with more dreams, volunteered to join the ninja army in Konoha Village. As for the Jonin, they basically returned Konoha and started to study. Let's go to Cloud Shinobi Village and take care of the last thing. Haruki jumped off the wall and left Mihariyama Castle with Konoha and Cloud Shinobi totaling 30,000 ninjas. A hillside in the country of rain. Uchiha Madara frowned slightly. A lot of rain fell on him. He didn't cover it, looked around, raised his hand and waved casually. The enchantment in front of him was broken. Who? The Rain Shinobi Village ninjas were surprised. They didn't even notice the approach of Uchiha Madara. If it hadn't been for him to interrupt the enchantment, I'm afraid I wouldn't know that he was touched close by someone. Uchiha Madara was quickly surrounded by a group of Rain Shinobi. Where is Hanzo? He asked blankly. Who are you? A middle-aged man walked out of the crowd and asked in a deep voice. The people in front of him put a lot of pressure on him. Uchiha Madara did not answer. When he was about to force in, two tents walked out of the crowd. One of them was holding a sickle and wearing a gas mask. It was Hanzo. The other person was shrouded in a black robe, with only two eyes exposed. A ninja disguised by White Zetsu, who specializes in delivering information from Akatsuki to Hanzo. It was also that he secretly fanned the flames and convinced Hanzo that the expansion of Akatsuki would threaten Rain Shinobi Village, and he had the idea to completely eradicate Akatsuki in act. Is this the awesome ninja you told me? Hanzo looked at Uchiha Madara and asked White Zetsu casually. Yes, it's him. White Zetsu maintains his mysterious personality, with a very plain tone. It looks very imposing. Hanzo commented, there is no respect in the words. He is a demigod of the ninja world. Apart from Haruki, who is said to have defeated 20,000 ninjas, he is not afraid of any ninjas. White Zetsu blinked when he heard the words. Uchiha Madara raised both fingers, looking at Hanzo's suspicious eyes. Mist suddenly rose. The scorching breath evaporated the rain and instantly turned into a fire dragon sweeping the sky. In the abrupt, galloping like a storm, Hanzo's face changed drastically and the breath of death fell. He opened the distance with the instant technique, and quickly sealed the seal with his hands. The rainwater hundreds of meters in the air was dragged by his chakra, forming a wall in front of him. In addition to poison and swordsmanship, Hanzo's water style is also very good. Even in Kirigakure, few people are better than him. However, his water barrier has almost no effect. His eyes widened. If he didn't admit it wrong, Uchiha Madara used the sea-level fire-style dragon fire technique. How can it be unstoppable? Damn it. Hanzo sealed the seal again, and while the fire dragon was blocked, the chakra in his body filled the surroundings. The farther rain turned into a huge water dragon in one breath, rushing towards the fire dragon frantically. Not only that, he put his hands together, inhaled suddenly, leaned back, and opened his mouth to spit out the waves of water, flooding the space in front of him. Zizi's voice. The fusion of fire and water. There is continuous gas coming out, making this hillside cloud and misty and uncertain. Hanzo's heartbeat almost stopped. The fire dragon moved forward until it was only 3 meters away from him before dissipating. This kind of power is simply unscientific. Especially the water style, which he used under heavy rain, has been blessed to a certain extent. Who are you? Hanzo put away his previous contempt, and asked with a solemn expression. The Rain Shinobi Village ninjas around him also looked at Uchiha Madara in horror. I can't believe that there are ninjas in this ninja world who can make Hanzo mess around with just one ninjutsu. It doesn't matter who I am. Uchiha Madara looked at him with a calm tone, and said, You just need to do what you have to do, hold down Tsunade and Jiraiya, and I will take care of Nagato and Obito. After receiving the news that Haruki had unified the Thunder Country, he knew that he was running out of time. The plan must be completed before Haruki pays attention to the battle in the Kingdom of Rain. After Uchiha Madara used the elephant turn technique, no ninja was his opponent in the Rain Country. So he felt that he didn't need any fancy planning at all, and he could do it directly, which saved the most time. Okay, it's up to you. Hanzo nodded, and turned to the ninja in Cloud Shinobi Village, and said, go to the Akatsuki organization and rumored that I am willing to negotiate with Rain Shinobi Village in front of Okura Mountain, and the time is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Anbu immediately led out. Uchiha Madara nodded slightly. Hanzo was a bit clever. At present, Cloud Shinobi Village is at a disadvantage. If a peace talk is proposed, whether it is true or not, Akatsuki's people will come. After all, Nagato, Yahiko, and Konan yearn for the so-called peace. Uchiha Madara can only be said to be too naive. It is impossible to achieve peace by such means. Everyone went to Okangshan and set up an ambush in advance. Hanzo ordered again. The ninja of Rain Shinobi Village left immediately. Okura Mountain is not far away, it will be there in a few minutes. Uchiha Madara looked around and found a tree. Standing on the branch, his appearance gradually changed. A strange and ordinary face. Master Madara. White Zetsu emerged from the trunk and greeted him. When we fight, you take the opportunity to attack Rin Nohara and let Obito witness her death, and I will take him away. Okay. White Zetsu nodded. He had previously attacked Yi Yuan Lin several times, but all of them failed. Know that she has a special endurance, but he was prepared this time. Time flies. 1 page M. Nagato, Yahiko, Konan arrived on time. In addition, there are Tsunade, Jiraiya, Obito and others. On the clearing before Okura Mountain, Hanzo walked to the three of them. Before Nagato spoke, Konan said coldly, call us over, I'm afraid the ambush has already been prepared. Hanzo was slightly startled, did we have a traitor? He and Uchiha Madara didn't actually know Akatsuki. Their purpose is indeed to bring peace to their own country and even the entire ninja world, and because they have absorbed many like-minded members. At the same time, it does not want to be a means of extreme force, but a communication between people. That's why Hanzo and Uchiha Madara think that they must go to the appointment. But it's a pity that Konan has long understood Hanzo's behavior because of Haruki. The reason for the appointment was because they discussed with Tsunade and planned to kill them all. Without waiting for Hanzo to reply, Konan raised his hand, and countless pieces of paper were surging like a tide, exuding blade-like sharpness, and all flew towards him. Damn it! Hanzo did not know why the plan was leaked. But the ambush has been set beforehand. He slammed the ground. Exposed a dense array of detonating symbols. Fire-style detonation flame array. The heat like magma exploded all the air and soil, forming a super great fireball over 10 meters. The Konan trio were obviously unexpected. At this moment, a row of wooden pillars rose from the soles of their feet to form an arch. Wood style. Uchiha Madara in the distance witnessed this familiar ninjutsu, and his calm face suddenly appeared shocked. Could it be Haruki? At this moment, he actually had the idea of wanting to leave. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 210 Tsunade vs Uchiha Madara, 2 in 1. Uchiha Madara stopped the urge to escape. As an experienced ninja who played against Senju Hashirama and Haruki, he realized that the intensity of this wood style was not high after a while. It is equivalent to the original wood clone of Haruki. But it was so, and it made him feel extremely difficult. He originally thought that after adding himself, the Rain Shinobi village side would be able to win steadily. Now with the wood clone Haruki, he might not have time to do other things himself. Maybe this ambush will fail miserably. Uchiha Madara's face was uncertain, but after all he made up his mind and prepared to give it a try. It's just that the three of Nagato gave up temporarily and pulled Obito into their camp. The flame burned out. The wood arches burnt to black or exposed. The ashes fell, and the three of them were intact. Uchiha Madara's eyes suddenly condensed. He thought wood style was Haruki's wood clone, but after seeing Tsunade, his heart was filled with complexity and doubts. He clearly remembers that Tsunade doesn't know how to wood style. Could it be that the cells of Senju Hashirama were transplanted? As he thought about it, the battle between the two sides began. Tsunade quickly raised his right arm, and countless vines and branches were like giant pythons, wrapped in a blooming posture toward Hanzo. The three people behind her also moved their hands. Konan's paper turned into a shuriken, wandering around the vines, haunting him. Yahiko put his fingers on his lips, inhaling and exhaling. Chakra flashed one after another, instantly igniting a series of splashes, like a spear. Nagato simply opened his palm. There was a sudden shock in the air. The remaining flames blow backwards and suddenly spread. Hanzo's face changed, and his body immediately lifted off. Accompanied by the huge shadow, a huge jet black like a toad-like Sancho fish descended. It splayed out a large-scale poisonous mist. Hanzo above his head is not idle either. A large amount of rainwater gathered in front of the Sancho fish, forming a wall. The poisonous mist spreads. The faces of the four Tsunade changed slightly, and the range was too wide. Yahiko immediately stopped and told the members of Akatsuki's organization behind him to step back. At the same time, the seal was formed, and the strong wind pressure swept the poisonous fog out of an empty area. Tsunade summoning out of Katsuyu. The huge body splits as soon as it comes out, and one is allocated for each person. She was no longer the Sanin she was when she was young, and the poisonous mist of the Sancho fish was almost instantly resolved. The most serious threat is lifted. Jiraiya chuckled twice, and his body rose sharply. There was a huge toad under his feet. It had a huge pipe in its mouth and a short sword in its waist. It's this troublesome Sancho fish again. Toad Wentai saw the old face, and couldn't help but vomit. Why didn't you see that spooky Orochimaru? He didn't come. Jiraiya took the time to reply, and immediately spit out a huge flame bomb in his mouth and went straight to Hanzo. Obito, Kakashi, and others confronted the Rain Shinobi village ninjas that emerged from the mountain. Just a few minutes. Rain Shinobi village fell into a bitter battle. Especially Hanzo, almost on the verge of death. At this moment, the flames suddenly brightened in the continuous rainy weather. One after another, the sparks that wrapped the sword in his hand covered nearly hundreds of meters in a blink of an eye. Such a great power made Tsunade and others shrink their eyes. I come. Tsunade did not hesitate to take on such an offensive. She could tell that apart from Nagato, she might be able to deal with it safely. Vines emerged from her arms. Almost in a breath, it swells rapidly, reaching the peak of its volume. Not inferior to the spark of Uchiha Madara. He planned to use this wide range of fire style to help Rain Shinobi village clean up some miscellaneous soldiers. But now it fails. Uchiha Madara couldn't get distracted anymore. Flames burned the trees, and ashes fell from time to time. Tsunade looked at the strange Uchiha Madara, frowning. Who are you? Such fire style ninjutsu shouldn't be an unknown person. Uchiha Madara snorted, without answering. It's just the granddaughter of Senju Hashirama. I'm too lazy to take a look at ordinary times. With a cold face, he inhaled sharply, and the chakra exhaled from his mouth instantly expanded, and the flames burned violently, revealing a huge dragon body, as if filling this square inch of land. Tsunade was suddenly a little frightened. She recognized that this was fire-style grade dragon fire technique, but it was grade B, but it was extremely powerful in his hands. The fire dragon changed again, and it was divided into three. The three fire dragons drained almost all the air and rain, giving people a super sense of oppression. Tsunade had a serious expression. The ground in front of him cracked one after another, dozens of vines lifted into the sky, like the strongest chain, wrapping the three fire dragons layer by layer. Uchiha Madara couldn't help but raise her brows when she saw the familiar wood style. He has seen Senju Hashirama used it. Wood style King Kong recruits wood. Uchiha Madara was a little upset. Why Senju Hashirama has been dead for so many years, and he can still see all kinds of shadows. It's really annoying. He flicked his sleeves casually. Under the incomparable control of chakra, the three fire dragons split again, and finally formed a fire dragon the size of a toothpick. No, it should be a line of fire, through the gap between the vines, like a rain of fire, covering dozens of people in front of you. Meter range. Tsunade raised his eyelids slightly. Uchiha Madara is definitely one of the strongest ninjas I have ever met. She pressed one hand on the ground. Woody vines appeared immediately centered on her. The vines were all under her control and overlapped on top of her head. After a while, a huge shield was formed. The flame fell on the shield, and various burn marks and smoke emerged. Uchiha Madara glanced at Hanzo's situation and couldn't help feeling a little anxious. He even temporarily matched Tsunade. Thinking of this, he added a bit of anger. The eyes that were normally visible suddenly rotated, and three Tomo appeared quietly. Sharingan? Tsunade's face showed a bit of surprise. Are you from the Uchiha clan? After speaking, I felt wrong again. Apart from Mikoto of the Uchiha clan, who can have such an ability? But the person in front of him is definitely not Mikoto. After all, she was in the water country and did not come back. And there is no need for Mikoto to fight Konoha. Uchiha Madara remained silent, without any words. With a move, a dozen consecutive offensives fell on Tsunade's body. The speed is as fast as ultimate. Tsunade reacted and responded with physical skills, but after just a few seconds, he was hit. Her weird power is no less than that of Uchiha Madara, but in front of Sharingan, her movements are completely seen through. There was a boom. Tsunade staggered back a few steps, and her fist fell on her right elbow, and numbness was coming. This person's physical skills are higher than hers. She immediately had a judgment. Without hesitation, hands folded, black stripes appeared on his face. Not Sage Mode, but 100 Healings mark unlocked. Massive amounts of chakra poured into the body. Uchiha Madara shook suddenly and jumped back. A seed appeared under his feet, and a wooden dragon instantly formed, chasing his trail like silky silk. He looked gloomy and had a bad feeling in his heart. Tsunade's 100 Healings mark is nothing to him. Besides, he met Uzumaki Mito and knew that Tsunade would 100 Healings mark. Before knowing wood style, Uchiha Madara was confident. But with wood style, big problems will arise. Wood style is the limit of blood inheritance. The more chakra volume, the more terrifying the power. Uchiha Madara relies on Sharingan to quickly dodge the wood dragon's attack. He dared not be entangled by the wooden dragon. Senju Hashirama relied on this wooden dragon technique to suppress the actions of Nine Tails and also had the function of absorbing chakra. If the previous Tsunade was only 30% of Senju Hashirama's strength, after the 100 healings mark was unlocked, it rose again by 10%. This also means that he may not be an opponent now. Uchiha Madara will never allow himself to lose to Tsunade, which is too embarrassing. If you see Senju Hashirama after death, if you have been defeated by my granddaughter, you can directly let him break the defense. Thinking of this, Uchiha Madara rarely becomes cautious. The eyes catch the wood dragon's trajectory, suddenly opened his mouth and spit out a fireball. The fireball was condescending, and it turned into a meteorite immediately. The huge size does not affect its speed. The wooden dragon in the air let out a painful cry, and his body was constantly shining with fire, and countless flames enveloped it. In an instant, only coke remained. Tsunade took a breath. This guy is really too strong. She estimated that if Mikoto did not use her Mangekyo Sharingan's abilities, it would be far inferior to Uchiha Madara in the use of fire style. And such a ninja, she had never heard of it. In fact, it is not. It's just that she never thought that it would be Uchiha Madara who should have died. Tsunade exhaled, and chakra, which was comparable to the vast ocean, poured into a small seed. In just a few breaths, a huge wooden golem that was comparable to Susanoo's body appeared in front of her. Uchiha Madara immediately paled. Big trouble. Wood-style wooden golem jutsu. Advanced wood-style ninjutsu. Senju Hashirama used it to fight against the 9 tails he controlled. In other words, this wooden golem has the strength of 9 tails. Although it may not be so powerful in Tsunade's hands, the question is where he comes from 9 tails now. Wooden golem ignored what Uchiha Madara was thinking, and his huge fist fell directly from a height of nearly 60 meters. The momentum is huge and terrifying. Only the fight between the toad Wentai and the Sanjiao fish in the distance can barely match. The fist goes everywhere, like a storm. Just listen to a bang. The ninjas fighting on both sides immediately felt the vibration of the ground, and their bodies couldn't help falling backward. And in the center, a fist pit nearly 4 or 5 meters deep appeared. Uchiha Madara cursed secretly, and then quickly avoided. Wooden golem is no slower than him. The scene was extremely chaotic for a while. Wooden golem's fist, various flames, are intertwined. The constant explosion sounds like fireworks during the new year, which explodes continuously one after another. White Zetsu, who was hiding in the dark, saw this scene and couldn't help but twitched his mouth. The last time I saw Uchiha Madara so embarrassed, I was still fighting Haruki. But this situation created a rare opportunity for him. White Zetsu first found Obito's location. The ninja who fought him was a tall middle-aged man. Sancho Fish Miraculous. Known as Hanzo's right hand, he is powerful. Although Obito had the help of 3 Tomo Sharingan, he still couldn't get the upper hand. White Zetsu immediately turned his gaze, and landed on Nohara Lin. Because of the Tsunade summoning beast Katsuyu, her medical ninjutsu is temporarily useless. But as Haruki's apprentice, she is more than just a base. Under the guidance of the teacher, I learned physical skills, especially Tsunade's strange power attack. Although not as good as the original version, it is more than enough to deal with the ninjas of Rain Shinobi Village. With Jonin being dragged by Nagato, Jiraiya and others, she relied on her excellent physical skills to move back and forth in the battlefield. White Zetsu's eyes narrowed slightly, staring at the white gloves she was wearing. The other clone, White Zetsu, was planted in her ninja kit last time. In addition to this, after a few temptations, he also got a second piece of information. Nohara Lin wears inner armor and can resist very powerful attacks. Now that the information is clear, White Zetsu is sure to deal with Rin Nohara. Besides, he has other assassins this time. White Zetsu raised his hand, and a black silk thread emerged from the palm of his hand. At the speed of ultimate, it instantly fell on the Sancho Fishmita who was fighting with Obito. I saw him growl in pain. What? Obito was slightly startled, and there was a heart-palpitating breath from the Sancho fish god's body. Could it be said that what kind of special ninjutsu? He quickly backed away, pulling away. Immediately frowned. Sanjiao Yu Shendo was covered with black material, which looked extremely permeating. He did not hesitate to spit out a fireball. The scorching breath surged. And Sanjiao Yu Mita made the same action, raising his head and spraying a straight stream of water. The sound of sizzling. The high-pressure water cut open the fireball. Obito's expression immediately became serious. This is a lot more powerful than the previous ninjutsu. He thought for a while and drew out the short sword behind him and rushed up. Because he often competes with Kakashi, his physique is not worse than Jonin, and with Sharingan, he is confident that he can beat the Sancho Fishmita. The two figures flashed and immediately collided more than a dozen times. Obito held short sword's right hand trembling slightly. Even physical skills have also been improved. This is a lot of trouble. But he was not afraid, nor frustrated. He was only 12 years old, and he fought back and forth with a well-known Jonin. he was already a rare genius. Another punch struck. The excited chakra made his face feel uncomfortable. Obito raised his sword to greet him, as if the metal collided with clang. His body swayed back several steps. "Obito, I'll help you." Nohara Lin noticed his situation here, and a body flicker technique appeared in front of Obito. Obito did not refuse. This is on the battlefield, there is no need to talk too much nonsense. Moreover, he himself is only half weaker than Sanjiao Shenda, and now with the help of Yi Yuan Lin, he has the confidence to defeat. So he regained his usual character. "Lin, come, let's combine our swords and chop him." Yi Yuanlin glared at him, clenched her fist, and slammed down Sanjiao Umida. Obito chuckled, keeping up with her rhythm. The two are teammates, so it goes without saying that they cooperate. Sancho Fish Maitak was immediately under the wind. White Zetsu was silently hiding under the ground where they were fighting. Nohara Lin jumped down after one, her feet accidentally trampled empty. A huge pit appeared unexpectedly. Also at this time, countless spears emerged from the ground in the two walls of the pit. "Lin!" Obito saw this scene suddenly, his eyes were cracked, and he shouted. At the same time, the attack is not over. After the spear appeared, another big hole appeared in the sky above Yi Yuan Lin. Countless rocks fell. While Sanjiao Umida took advantage of Obito's loss of consciousness, his figure rushed, and his huge fist fell on his back without any effort. Only a painful scream of Obito and the sound of cracking bones were heard. He slid forward and fell to the ground, life and death unknown. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.